Chapter 1787. At this age, if one were to have any thoughts, it would very likely cause one's entire life to be ruined. Back then, the Moon Empress was in her early 20s and was radiant with youth. At that time, the Moon Empress was simply too dazzling. The younger generation had competitors, but no one was a match for the Moon Empress. Even if the Moon Empress had a cold temperament, she had captured the hearts of countless people back then. His Holiness the Solitary Lamp was one of them. On the Azure Federation's side, there was even a Class 5 family head who had also appeared as a spectator during the Radiance 100 sequence test. As a result, this 5-star Azure aristocratic family's family head immediately took a fancy to the Moon Empress. Until now, he still hasn't taken a wife. Because he was unable to continue the bloodline, the former 5-star Azure family patriarch gave up the position of patriarch. He gave it to his younger brother. He became the guardian of his family. The Azure Daylight Tiger family had always been rather critical of the Moon Empress. However, all of this had nothing to do with the Moon Empress. However, back then, the Azure Daylight Tiger family's former family head had tried to woo the Moon Empress. He had done many shameful things. He was even beaten up twice by Night Leaning Moon and Solitary Eternal Lamp. When he thought of Night Leaning Moon, the golden-armored man couldn't help but bite his lips. For a moment, the golden-armored man couldn't figure out the relationship between Night Leaning Moon and the Moon Empress. Of course, the golden-armored man could only casually think about these things in his heart. The golden-armored man didn't have the guts to say such a thing. At that moment, the golden-armored man saw Lin Yuan reaching out and holding Xiaqing's hand. Then he smiled brightly and said, "Nice to meet you, Xiaqing. I'm Lin Yuan." When he smiled, his lips curled up slightly, and 2 dimples appeared on the corners of his mouth. Her lips were red and her teeth were pearly white. Her smile was as bright as the sun, and she was in high spirits. Lin Yuan's smile caused the golden-armored man's heart to tremble. Oh my God! The Moon Empress disciple really knows how to laugh. Which young lady could withstand such a smile? Xiaqing was slightly startled when she saw Lin Yuan's smile. Before Xiaqing could speak, Gao Feng took the lead and patted Lin Yuan's shoulder. "Brother Lin, you're simply too strong. If it weren't for you in this battle, we would have all been defeated." Gao Feng was straightforward with his words. Plus, he had just fought a hardy battle and won. Gao Feng was excited. Therefore, when he spoke, he did not pay much attention to Lu Yifan. It seemed as though Lu Yifan, the 3rd-ranked Radiance envoy, was useless. In fact, although Lu Yifan was not in the limelight in this battle, if Lu Yifan had not used the Heavenly Peach Bird, the Yin-Yang Twin Ox, and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams goat, he would not have been able to defeat Lu Yifan. He also had the support of the gem which, a sacred source life form. Even if Lu Jie allowed the Insect Queen to fuse with the sacred source life form, the 1000 Insect Queen core, to enter the ultimate weapon form and even the Insect Queen awakening form, the Insect Queen would not be able to recover. The team had long since been defeated by the enemy. It would not wait for Lin Yuan to recover from the stalemate with the phaseless beast. As a defense-type spirit chi professional, it was hard for him to be outstanding if he wasn't an attacker. In a team, a pure defense-type spirit chi professional's presence was even lower than a pure support-type spirit chi professional's. If it were in the past, and he, who had always been very protective of his senior brother, would definitely be unhappy. But now, and he did not have such a feeling. That was because he had watched this battle from start to finish. Gao Feng had spoken an objective fact and did not mean to belittle anyone. Previously he, Lu Jie, Gao Feng, Gu Lang, Zhong Zhe, and he had held a meeting. They basically told each other the functions of their phase and sacred source lifeforms. Lin Yuan did not hide anything either. However, due to the urgency of time, no one summoned their phase to display their abilities and exclusive skills. As a result, Lin Yuan's phase gave everyone a pleasant surprise. Previously, and he had always thought that there was no such thing as an all-round spirit chi professional in this world. Spirit chi professionals were divided into 4 major categories: power offense, defense, healing, and support. Ordinary spirit chi professionals would only choose to specialize in one of these 4 major categories. This way, it would be easier for them to play a role in the team. Spirit Chi professionals who specialized in two categories were destined to not be as strong as those who specialized in only one. After all, spiritual energy was limited, and so was the number of contracted phase. However, Lin Yuan had subverted Enhe's understanding. Based on Enhe's previous understanding of Lin Yuan had only shown his side as a power offense-type Spirit Chi professional. Upon knowing that Lin Yuan was black, Enhe's subconscious reaction was that it was absurd. This was because Black's position was a healing-type Spirit Chi professional. But in this battle, Black helped the team recover their spiritual power, and Source Sand helped the team block attacks and cover the swarm. That strange-looking healing-type Fei had taken Lu Jie's life. He also healed Gao Feng's Yellow Spring Lily. In terms of attack, other than Zhong Zai's attack that broke the link between the three of them, the other two were the strongest. Lu Jie's Insect Queen mainly served as a distraction. It didn't have any practical effect. Therefore, the few attacks that could affect the outcome were all made by Lin Yuan without exception. And he had always had a sense of pride in his heart. It was hard to truly admire someone. Even if Lin Yuan had given him a large number of Creation Master resources to transform his awakening hibernation Earth Dragon bloodline, he would not be able to do so. And his feelings for Lin Yuan were just friendship, but also a little gratitude. But now Lin Yuan had won this battle. And he was completely convinced by Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's words, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "It's everyone's credit that we can win this duel. If you hadn't protected me in the early stages, I would have been killed by the other party." Lin Yuan's words were by no means modest. It was the truth. In this duel, everyone did their best to make the most of their contribution. Until now, Lin Yuan felt that the World Calamity Beast was very special and powerful. Lin Yuan felt that his soul power, spiritual power, and wisdom were far superior to his peers. However, under the attack of the World Calamity Beast, Morbius had to continuously release Calm Mind in order to protect his mind. During this period of time, if Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, or Chen Yu were able to get close to him, they would be able to kill him. Of course, through this battle, Lin Yuan had a very deep understanding of his strength. Chen Yu died, and Lu O was forced to summon Nana. This meant that Chen Yu and Lu O had used up their trump cards. But Lin Yuan didn't. In addition to those trump cards that couldn't be used, Lin Yuan still had two sword skills that he could use. The second function of the Holy Sword mode, which had a higher price, was not used. The second function of the Holy Sword mode was the strongest trump card that Lin Yuan could release in the current battle. Chapter 1788. Xian Yu had always known what kind of person Lin Yuan was. Xian Yu did not find it strange that Lin Yuan could say such a thing. However, the golden-armored man looked at Lin Yuan in surprise. It was fine if such a young person did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. But he was so thoughtful in handling matters. In terms of strength, Xia Qing had never competed with Lin Yuan. Before they fought, it was hard to say who would win. Qian Yu's strength was definitely stronger than Lin Yuan's. However, in the battle, Qian Yu was restrained by Lin Yuan in almost every kind of means. Xia Qing's sacred source life form seemed to be able to restrict Lin Yuan to a certain extent. Regardless of strength, Xia Qing's personality was far inferior to Lin Yuan's. Xia Qing's pride would create a barrier between her and others. Therefore, Xia Qing was not suitable to be a leader. This was also why the old man did not want Xia Qing to compete for the first Radiance envoy position. He watched as Lu Jie, Zhong Zai, Gu Lang, Gao Feng, and the others spoke one after another, all of them talking with Lin Yuan as the center. The golden-armored man looked at Lin Yuan deeply. At the same time, a sense of anticipation for the future arose in his heart. Compared to the Freedom Federation, unity would always be the Radiance Federation's strongest strength. The moment Lin Yuan and the others walked out of the Radiance Sacred Hall in their royal robes, the entire Star Web audience cheered again. The cheers on Star Web were incompatible with the solemn music in the Radiance Sacred Hall. However, if Lin Yuan had already controlled the phaseless beast, he would have noticed it. The Radiance Federation's luck was currently rising rapidly. The Moon Empress stood on the golden stone pillar and looked proudly at Lin Yuan, who was walking toward her step by step. Lin Yuan's path was destined to be very difficult. Otherwise, he would not have been so powerful. It was just like how the Moon Empress did not stand out in front of others, but only she knew how hard she had worked behind the scenes. There was no luck in one's strength. One had to climb up step by step. Only then could one become stronger. As Lin Yuan's master, the Moon Empress had never had the chance to participate in his hardships. On the contrary, Lin Yuan had helped her much more than she had helped Lin Yuan. Apart from the pure spirit qi, a lifespan rat had even saved his life. Seeing that Lin Yuan had walked to her side, the Moon Empress reached out and pulled him. He said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, this world is yours from now on. Fly as you wish." Lin Yuan was slightly startled when he heard that. Then he suddenly recalled that his master, the Moon Empress, had said something similar when he was building the Sky Castle. However, back then his master, the Moon Empress, had told him not to be afraid. He told himself that there would always be a solid shield behind him and that he could fly freely. Right now, the Moon Empress' words were filled with affirmation and expectations for him. Lin Yuan gently held onto the Moon Empress' hand and said, "That's right. Master, I will fly higher into the sky and gather more moons for you." If Lin Yuan had said something like this when he had just accepted him as a disciple, he would have been shocked. Although the Moon Empress would be very touched, she would not take it seriously. However, Lin Yuan had already given him a cyan moon. At that moment, when the Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan again, she realized something. In fact, unknowingly, Lin Yuan had already grown from a youth into a real man. However, the Moon Empress didn't know what she was feeling. There was joy, pride, and bitterness. In short, this feeling was very similar to when Lin Yuan had found out that Chu Xi had grown up. "Little Yuan, Master still has the same words. No matter how high you fly, Master will always protect you. As long as Master doesn't die, no one can bully you." In fact, when Lin Yuan and the others were in the team battle with the Freedom Federation's envoys, the Moon Empress and the Radiance Federation's other eminences were on guard. After all, the Heaven-Blessed Dojo had sent news that 2 members of the FATA's 8 pages would be visiting the Radiance Federation. However, the Radiance 100 sequence test had completely ended, and those 2 members of the 8 pages had not appeared. Even on the side of the Freedom Federation, there weren't any problems. This made the Moon Empress feel very strange. The strangest thing was the change in Goddess Lian's attitude toward the Radiance Federation. On the Radiance Federation's land, it was better to have less trouble. It was naturally the best if there could be no conflict. Otherwise, if there was a conflict, the ones who would suffer the most would be the ordinary people. Xue Shuo had been lying in Lin Yuan's hair. Beside Blue Lotus and White Phoenix in the Return from Faraway Manor, a beautiful woman wearing a light purple fur coat had appeared. This woman's eyes landed on the Mother of Bloodbath without blinking. Tears were swirling in the beautiful woman's eyes. Her eyes were filled with tears, and from time to time, a teardrop would slide down the beautiful woman's cheek. It immediately set off a ripple in the air. It caused the stable space to bloom with bewitching foxtail flowers. The Mother of Bloodbath had heard from Xue Shuo that the beautiful woman in front of her, who was the Heaven-Blessed Dojo's Grand Hall Master Ziqing, would come over to deliver her mother's remnant soul. During the long night conversation between the Mother of Bloodbath and Xue Shuo had mentioned the relationship between Ziqing and her mother. Back then, after her mother had died because of the 5 pages of truth, Ziqing had been able to kill her way into the enemy's headquarters alone and kill the Pagoda Cannon's Page of Destiny at the risk of serious injuries. Just based on this point, Ziqing was the benefactor of this small family. Even the Mother of Bloodbath had always had a cool temperament. After seeing Ziqing, she hurriedly called out to her. When the Mother of Bloodbath called her Aunt Z, a gentle smile immediately appeared on Ziqing's beautiful face. Ziqing reached out and hugged the Mother of Bloodbath. She said softly, "Little Qing, you've suffered all these years." On one side, Blue Lotus and White Phoenix were waiting for Ziqing's arrival in the Return from Faraway Manor. On the other side, they were also waiting for news from Xue Shuo. The Pagoda Cannon had yet to appear, which made Blue Lotus and White Phoenix feel that something was wrong. However, the information they had received could not be false. In their opinion, once 2 of the 8 pages of the Pagoda Canon appeared, with their strength and Hui Yao's Majesty's strength, they would definitely be able to take down these 2 members of the Pagoda Canon. Furthermore, as long as a few of Hui Yao's Majesties paid attention to protecting the surroundings, even if there were losses, the losses would be very small. Especially now that even Big Sister Ziqing had come. Big Sister Ziqing's strength was above the eternal realm. According to the human language, she could already be called a god. This would undoubtedly be a greater guarantee for the 2 members of the Pagoda Canon. But where did the people of the Pagoda Canon go? Could it be that the 2 members of the Pagoda Canon who came to Hui Yao heard the news in advance and ran away? While Blue Lotus and White Phoenix were thinking about all this, they did not know that someone was sitting in the Spirit Food Pavilion and was even more anxious. 7017K. Chapter 1789. The celebration after the war with the Freedom Federation had already ended. The Star Web live broadcast in the Radiance Sacred Hall had been cut off. It could be said that the entire Radiance 100 sequence test had ended. In the face of Hui Yao's celebration, Hui Yao's young prodigy defeated the Freedom Federation's young prodigy. He had won glory for Hui Yao. Those who came from relatively well-off families all headed for the Spirit Food Pavilion. They were going to have a big meal at the Spirit Food Pavilion to celebrate. These people who came to the Spirit Food Pavilion all found that, in the corner of the hall, an exceptionally righteous-looking man frowned slightly. He did not respond to the middle-aged women who tried to strike up a conversation with him. As he pondered, he looked in the direction of the Radiance Sacred Hall. This middle-aged man with a face full of righteousness was 6-page whipping. 6th-page whipping was very clear about his and 2nd-page revival's plan. The Radiance 100 sequence test had already ended, even if he did not release the Black Mass Cup. It was about time for the 2nd-page revival to take action. However, there was nothing unusual in the direction of the desolate arcanum behind the Radiance Sacred Hall. No one was fighting. Even the mountain river set bells of the Hui Yao had been put away a long time ago. An hour ago, 6 pages of whip could feel it clearly. The auras of the Freedom Federation's goddess Lien, Na, and Li Su passed over the Spirit Food Pavilion. This meant that the 3 of them had left. Previously, Lashing the 6th-page army changed their plans without permission and gave the 2nd-page revival a surprise. The 2nd-page revival could be said to have given the 6th-page whipping a surprise. Page 6 now has 3 choices. The first option was to stay in the Radiance Royal Capital for a period of time and observe the changes. Looking at the current situation, doing so would only be a waste of time. Moreover, his target was not Hui Yao. Hui Yao was just a touchstone. His goal was to help the organization search for the secrets of the Pagoda Canon. Over the past few years, he had lured the Page of Fate into recruiting him. He became the 6th page of the Pagoda Canon. He moved into one of the 8 pagodas of the Pagoda Canon. However, 6 pages whip discovered that there was a layer of fog that could not be reached everywhere in the Pagoda Canon. Even though he had become the 6th page of the Tower Canon, he had not been able to truly explore the core secrets of the Tower Canon. When the 1st page Fate died, the 6th page whip was waiting for the Pagoda Canon's reaction. But who would have thought that after the Fate page died, the Crimson page would appear? Moreover, Renaissance 2nd page seemed to know Scarlet 1st page. He resolutely completed every task Scarlet page gave him and addressed Scarlet page as Lord, just like a servant. This made 6 pages whip immediately realize that something was wrong. Without his help this time, if the 2nd page revival clashed with the Radiance Federation, there was an 80% chance that it would perish. The 6th page whip was to see if the so-called Crimson page would come to help the 2nd page whip. At that time, Crimson page 1 and Renaissance page 2 would wage an all-out war against Radiance. Naturally, the secret could no longer be hidden. The second option was to whip 6 pages and return to the Pagoda Canon with his current identity. However, the 6th page whip was unable to ascertain whether the 2nd page of revival had encountered an accident or had returned to the Pagoda Canon due to his disappearance. If something happened to the second page of revival, he would return to the pagoda cannon and give a reasonable explanation. He shouldn't be suspected. However, if the second page of revival had returned to the pagoda cannon, then going back would be akin to walking into a trap. This caused the sixth page whip to fall into a dilemma for a moment. As for the third option, it was to whip 6 pages whip back to his original organization. He would return to his identity as Treasure Sword 4. However, if he did that, all the meticulous disguises he had put into the pagoda cannon and everything he had done would be useless. Just as the 6th page whip was preparing to head to the pagoda cannon and take a gamble, 6 pages whip's phone rang again. The 6th page whip knew that his phone was ringing. It must be someone from the organization calling him. After picking up the phone, the 6th page whip heard a gentle female voice on the other end of the phone. Ashua, you have been exposed in the pagoda cannon. Come back immediately. This is the captain's decision. The 6th page whip pondered for a long time. Shikai, how did the captain know that I have been exposed in the pagoda cannon? Shikai's code name in the organization was Pagoda. She was in charge of internal communication for all the members. It was impossible for Shikai to release fake information to trick him back to the organization. For Shikai to say this, it must mean that the organization already had the relevant information. The woman on the other end of the phone saw that no one objected to her calling him Ashua this time. She immediately knew that it was the man on the other end of the phone. She also wanted to return to the organization. Shikai said softly, Ashua, I know you have been hiding in the pagoda cannon for 40 years and you are unwilling to give up, but this is the news from the judgment team. Also, if you don't go out to carry out missions, you can return to your original code name Justice. You don't need to call yourself Treasure Sword 4 anymore. From today onwards, the 6th page cannon has nothing to do with you. Shikai's words made the man's face, which was full of justice, show a moment of surprise. Shikai said that the news came from the Judgment team. Judgment was also the code name of one of the members of the organization. This meant that he was not the only member of the organization hiding in the pagoda cannon. The man thought about it again and again, but he couldn't figure it out. Who in the 8th page cannon could be the person in the organization with the code name Justice? The man hadn't heard of the code name Justice for more than 40 years. Since he couldn't return to the pagoda cannon, the man didn't insist. He stretched his body, revealing the perfect lines of his muscles. The eyes of the middle-aged women around him lit up. The man's furrowed brows silently relaxed. Shikai, tell the captain that Justice is tired and wants to take a break. Report back in 2 months and tell the captain not to miss me. After speaking, the man stood up. He used this face of justice to throw a coquettish glance at the middle-aged women beside him. He left the spirit food pavilion without looking back. He blended into the crowd and disappeared. The woman named Shikai on the other end of the phone heard a tone that she hadn't heard for more than 40 years. The indifference in the tone made Shikai know that Justice from 40 years ago had returned. It was just in time for the organization to make a big move in 2 months. When Justice returned, he would be able to make it in time. At that moment, outside the Radiance continent, in the sky above the sea region not far away, from the Radiance continent. At that moment, outside the Radiance continent, in the sky above the sea region not far away, the triangular position was like 3 sides facing each other. They were in a triangular position, as though 3 sides were facing each other. They didn't dare to make any noise in the Fey carriage at the side. Only a youth with short silver hair was frowning and observing the situation outside the Fey carriage. At the same time, he was trying to communicate with the contract in the depths of his mind that had been disconnected. 7017K. Chapter 1790. Nana had already dispelled her greater devil form. He looked at Lian Shen with a sharp gaze and said coldly, Compassion Goddess, what did you mean when you were in the Radiance sect just now? Hearing this, Lian Shen swung her golden-red fishtail. A huge golden-red wave appeared out of nowhere and crashed toward Nana. Nana pulled out a white bone blade that looked like it was carved out of ivory to block the golden-red stream of water that Lian deity had casually unleashed. Nah, watch your tone when you talk to me. You are not a god yet. If you want to cross the step, your luck will only be good in 1 or 2 years. But if you're unlucky, it's not impossible to be stuck for 8 to 10 years. First, I have to teach you to be obedient. Mirror God and Foolish God can do whatever you want, but that doesn't mean I can. Secondly, as the leader of the Freedom Federation, you broke the rules. In less than a month, all the Federation with Class 5 Creation Masters will receive the news. When we go back and worship in the Temple of Liberty. Not just me, the others will also want an explanation from you. Thirdly, I'm interested in the dimensional gem you obtained from the swamp world. You rejected me at that time. I didn't snatch it from you because I gave you face. But now you're giving it to the Radiance Federation as compensation. Are you provoking me? As she spoke, the god of pity turned to Li Su and asked, Li Su, you are the leader of the team this time. After I came here, have I done anything to harm the Freedom Federation? Li Su did not know what to say. Everything Goddess Lien said made sense, but this method was completely out of line with Goddess Lien's style. However, there was still a huge gap in strength between him and Goddess Lien. Furthermore, a large portion of his creation master resources came from the pity goddess. Therefore, even though Li Su knew that the goddess of pity was targeting Nana and intended to let Nana shoulder all the blame, she did not care. Li Su had no choice but to agree. Compassion goddess, you really haven't done anything to harm the Freedom Federation since you arrived. Instead, it was Nana who broke the rules of the duel. When Nana heard this, her charming face began to distort. She was so angry that she couldn't help but giggle. Nana had always understood what it meant to have a bigger fist. But Nana had never received such treatment. Everyone was a part of the Freedom Federation, even though everyone was secretly scheming behind the scenes. But on the surface, they could at least maintain a harmonious atmosphere. But now, Goddess Lien had directly shed all pretense of cordiality and used her strength to suppress him. Nana said coldly, Of course I wouldn't dare to provoke the goddess of compassion. When we reach the Temple of Liberty, I will give everyone an explanation for what I've done. Nana came to Lu O's side as she spoke. With Lu O in tow, he teleported to the Freedom Federation. When Li Su saw Nana leave, he thought that the matter had come to an end. He didn't expect the compassion goddess to suddenly fire at him. Li Su, because of your foolish plan, my beloved Qian Yu died in the duel with Hui Yao. Who was the one who told me that there would be no mistakes in this duel? If it wasn't for your suggestion to drag down a few of Her Holiness's disciples, this wouldn't have happened. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and the people behind Han Qi are probably waiting for you to give them an explanation. You know better than me how much Du Miao values Han Qi and who has the best relationship with Du Miao. I heard that Du Miao and Han Qi's blood can merge. Do you know about this? At this moment, Li Su finally understood what Nana had felt. Li Su had no way of answering the compassion god's questions. This was because Li Su was very clear that upon returning to the Freedom Federation, he was destined to face the censure of many people. At that time, they would have to pay a huge sum of resources. Li Su cupped his hands at the goddess of mercy and said, Mercy goddess, I'll take my leave first. When we return, I will give everyone an explanation. Han Qi's skills were inferior and he died in battle. I think Du Miao can understand. As he spoke, Li Su steered the Fey vehicle and brought the 3 elders and 4 Liberal 100 sequence members toward the direction of the Freedom Federation. A smile finally appeared on Lien Shen's face as she remained where she was. Lien Shen happily swung her tail twice, then clapped her hands. Na and Li Su had been driven away by him. This way, it would be easier for him to return to the Radiance Federation and complete his plan. Of course, before that he had to meet the Moon Empress and the Radiance Federation's elder. Lin Yuan was walking on the street with Lu Jie, preparing to return to the return from faraway mansion. After the Radiance 100 sequence test ended, everyone went back to recuperate. They agreed to meet at Lin Yuan's place for a meal 2 days later. Lin Yuan still remembered when he had checked Lu Jie's sacred source life form, the 10,000 insect emperor core. The 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's second function, Emperor Recovery, was when the insect queen consumed a large amount of vitality. This vitality could be used to guide the insect queen's genetic model and awaken the insect queen's genes. It was applied to the ultimate weapon and descended in the form of the insect queen. After the queen's form disappeared, the dimensional life form that fused with it would receive a trace of the queen's blessing. The quality of this blessing would increase according to the insect queen's form and the length of time it was maintained. In order to assist the insect queen, Lin Yuan had used a sword skill, Forest Transformation Deer Strike. It had squeezed out all the vitality energy in the vitality imprint. Such a large amount of vitality energy was very difficult to replicate. With such a large amount of vitality energy, the insect queen's form was maintained for more than a minute and 30 seconds. Therefore, as an insect species life form, the insect queen's blessing should be very good. Lin Yuan asked Lu Jie, "Big brother Lu, how is the insect queen now?" Did the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing increase the insect queen's combat ability? Did the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing increase the insect queen's combat ability? Lu Jie and Lin Yuan were both wearing face masks. After all, they had just finished the Radiance 100 sequence test, and Lu Jie and Lin Yuan were very popular now. In such a situation, not wearing a face mask was very likely to cause traffic congestion. Lin Yuan was wearing a face mask, and his words sounded dull as usual. However, when he heard it in Lu Jie's heart, it made him sink into a wonderful feeling. Every time he was in danger, Lin Yuan was his salvation. He could always believe in Lin Yuan. After the insect queen released its fusion with the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core, it fell into a deep sleep. However, as the insect queen's contractor, Lu Jie could feel the changes in the insect queen's condition. The changes in the insect queen's condition made Lu Jie exceptionally happy. It could be said that the 10,000 Insect Emperor Core's blessing had increased Lu Jie's strength. It was not inferior to the previous time when the insect queen had obtained the Blade Queen Bee's poison and mutated. 7017K. Chapter 1791. The Sacred Source Life Form, Myriad Insect Queen's Blessing, targeted the insect queen's reproductive cavity. It enhanced the insect queen's reproductive ability. The insect queen itself was a unit that relied on producing insect-type creatures and relying on insect-type creatures to fight. It could be said that the more insect-type life forms the insect queen produced, the stronger the insect queen's combat ability would be. One had to know that every time they were able to produce a few more insect units, the entire insect swarm would have more changes in their combinations. Furthermore, the insect queen's reproductive cavity would transform after receiving the blessing. Not only would it allow the insect queen to produce more insect-type life forms, but it would also allow the insect queen to produce insect-type life forms faster. It would be able to produce a large number of insect-type life forms in an extremely short period of time. The insect queen was still in a deep slumber and had yet to awaken. Therefore, Lu Jie was unable to summon the insect queen and let it produce insect-type life forms. He wanted to see how much the insect queen's production speed had increased. However, through Lu Jie's perception, the insect queen's production speed had increased by at least 50%. This meant that the insect queen could produce 3 insect-type life forms while producing 2 insect-type life forms previously. Such an improvement allowed Lu Jie's insect swarm to form faster. It also allowed Lu Jie to not completely rely on positional warfare to fight. In fact, Lu Jie would not compare these improvements to the insect queen's mutation after absorbing the Blade Queen Bee's toxins. The insect queen's mutation after absorbing the Blade Queen Bee's toxins had allowed it to control insect-type carcinoma phase through these toxins. It had formed a special contract with the insect-type carcinoma phase. It was the insect queen's improvement that allowed Lu Jie, who was originally in the middle echelon of the Radiance 100 sequence, to be on par with Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, and He and the others. Lu Jie compared the insect queen's current improvement to the previous one. This was because the insect queen's contracted source-type life form, the cocoon of evolution, had been rooted in the insect queen's reproductive cavity. The cocoon of evolution had absorbed more than half of the insect queen's blessing. The cocoon of evolution had mutated, and the insect queen's corresponding 5 gene fragments had all been enhanced. The cocoon of evolution had also reserved a portion of energy. It was obviously reserved for the last insect-type Fey or insect-type source-type life form that Lu Jie had not let the insect queen absorb. All this while, the insect queen had not had any diamond abilities. It wasn't that Lu Jie didn't want to upgrade the insect queen. The stronger the insect queen, the more types of insect species phase gene fragments it could obtain. It could be said that among all the insect queen skills, the diamond rank skill was the one that could increase the insect queen's strength the most. Due to the Freedom Federation's envoys, Lu Jie was prepared to choose an insect species Fey with extremely powerful single-target attacks before the Radiance 100 sequence competition. This would allow the insect queen to obtain gene fragments and turn them into the insect queen's diamond tier skill, which would increase its strength in battle. However, just as Lu Jie and Lin Yuan were discussing it, Lin Yuan rejected it. He knew very well that Lu Jie had never let the insect queen solve the problem of the diamond abilities. This was because Lu Jie had never had a suitable choice. Lu Jie only had one Fey, the insect queen. Once a decision was made, there was no way to regret it. Moreover, Lu Jie's insect queen was already sufficiently complete. Since he hadn't figured out which path he should take, he had to keep the diamond skill slot open. This battle had made Lu Jie realize his own shortcomings. When facing a powerful opponent, the insect swarm could only forcefully drag it out. Once the opponent had the ability to recover, the insect swarm would be helpless. Han Qi, who had fought against Lin Yuan in the general slaying battle, could be said to be a natural counter to Lu Jie with a treasured artifact. Therefore, Lu Jie planned to use diamond skills that could limit the healing effect of his opponent while maintaining his single-target attack power. With a clear direction, Lu Jie immediately had many excellent choices to choose from. Under the blessing of the source-type life form, the cocoon of evolution, Lu Jie's insect queen's 5 existing abilities had all transformed. If it was someone else, even if it was Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, or Gao Feng, who had become friends with Lu Jie wouldn't say anything. Lu Jie wouldn't say anything. However, in the face of Lin Yuan's question, Lu Jie definitely wouldn't hide anything. Lin Yuan, the insect queen's current combat ability has at least doubled compared to before. The blessing obtained by the insect queen is an increase in reproductive function. The cocoon of evolution that happened to be rooted in the reproductive cavity has also evolved because of this blessing. All 5 of the insect queen's abilities have greatly mutated or improved compared to before. It's just that the insect queen is still asleep, so I can't determine through actual combat how much better the produced insects are after the changes in the abilities. Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a look of joy. He treated Lu Jie as a brother. Lin Yuan was very happy that Lu Jie's insect queen could obtain such a great opportunity. It had to be known that the myriad insect emperor core could only bless each insect-type life form once. The next time the insect queen combined with the sacred source life form, the myriad insect emperor core, it would no longer receive the blessing. Lin Yuan was very afraid that the blessing this time would not hit the nail on the head. For example, the insect queen was a fairy source-type life form that relied on summoning insect swarms to fight. If the blessing strengthened the insect queen's body, it could be said to be exceptionally useless to the insect queen. Firstly, the insect queen was in charge of producing insect units in battle and couldn't go forward for close combat. Fairy source-type lifeforms' bodies were fragile. Even if it was enhanced, it could not compare to the physique of power offense-type phase of the same grade. Secondly, the insect queen hid among the insect swarms and was protected by layers of insect swarms. The insect cancer phase that Lu Jie summoned would also protect the insect queen. For example, the demonic flower gas shield bug that had constantly landed on Lin Yuan during the team battle. The insect queen was protected by layers of defense, and if the enemy could break through its defenses, no matter how strong the insect queen's physique was, it would still be killed by the enemy. Big brother Lu, congratulations. Looking at the heartfelt smile on Lin Yuan's face, Lu Jie felt as though the sun had risen. His improvement this time was still entirely due to Lin Yuan's help. Without Lin Yuan, Lu Jie didn't think that he would have the qualifications to metamorphose. If Lin Yuan hadn't suddenly awakened during the battle with the phaseless beast, even if he had ultimately won against the Freedom Federation, because of the insect queen's declining reproductive functions and the loss of vitality, he was destined to become a cripple. In Lu Jie's heart, Lin Yuan was his salvation. He was willing to transform into a shield and a sword to protect the light. 7017K. Chapter 1792. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Lu Jie had walked all the way to the suburbs. There was no one else around this area. After walking for a while, they arrived at the return from faraway manor. Lin Yuan said to Lu Jie, "Brother Lu, why don't you summon the insect queen for me to see?" Upon hearing this, Lu Jie immediately summoned the insect queen from its slumber. Lin Yuan saw that the sleeping insect queen had an unusually peaceful expression on its face. There was a blissful smile on his face. It was as if the slumbering insect queen was having a sweet dream due to its own improvement. He immediately used Morbius True Data to check on the insect queen. Fey name: Insect Queen, Spirit Species. Insect/Fey, Fey grade. Diamond/ 10 out of 10. Fey type: Source/Spiritual, Fey quality. Fantasy V skills: Frowny face, execution blade insect. The insect's body has 8 hook-shaped insect limbs. It has lost its sense of taste, smell, and oral cavity. The insect's legs have extremely strong perception, and the tip of the hook-shaped insect limbs has a mouthpiece connected to the internal organs. After piercing into the target's body, the mouthpiece protrudes out and can shatter the target's sturdy body. Armor-shaking ladybug opens up its back to provide a strong defense when attacked. At the same time, its back will violently vibrate, reflecting physical attacks. When attacked by elemental energy, the vibrating back can avoid a certain amount of elemental damage. Plasma current lightning insect. The insect's body spits out a large amount of plasma that converges into a plasma current. The plasma current has a powerful paralyzing effect and will cause continuous electrical damage to the target. Electromagnetic chrysalis. In the chrysalis state, it can increase the speed of plasma gathering and quickly shoot out the gathered plasma. In the chrysalis state, it can use the plasma to trigger a magnetic field and control long-distance targets. Silent nocturnal moth. When it flaps its wings, it can create a huge gust of wind to attack or control its target. Special scales grow on its wings, allowing it to perfectly blend into the night. It can also increase its concealment ability during the day. Exclusive skill: Frowny face, explosion recovery. The insect queen will choose a portion of the insects it produces to explode. During the explosion, the insect queen can target a target based on the insect's body quality. After the explosion, the insect queen will recover a portion of the insect's protein and spiritual energy. Insect swarm frenzy. When the insect swarm enters a frenzy state, their speed and attack power greatly increase. Under the frenzy state, the insect swarm gains a bloodthirsty effect and can obtain a certain amount of life force from the target's blood. After probing, Lin Yuan revealed a surprised expression and did not speak for a long time. The insect queen's condition was exactly as Lu Jie had described. In terms of skills, they had all been upgraded. However, after seeing the insect queen's true data, Lin Yuan felt that using the word upgrade to describe the insect queen was not very accurate. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the changes in the insect queen's abilities could be described as innovation. The insect queen's normal skill was the flesh-mincing blade insect. At that time, the flesh-mincing blade insect could only cut the target's flesh with its 6 blade-like limbs. Now, the execution blade insect had transformed into a combat weapon that was compatible with the insect queen. By degrading its sense of taste, smell, and oral cavity, the insect queen could produce fewer organs when it produced the execution blade insects. It also saved a lot of protein. Originally, the flesh-mincing blade insect only had 6 legs. Now that it had 8 legs, it not only increased the combat efficiency. The hook-shaped legs could effectively fix the execution blade insect on the target's body. When the insect legs moved, it was equivalent to cutting off a piece of flesh along with the skin. The damage caused would undoubtedly be much greater than before. In addition, The execution blade insect's mouthparts hidden in the insect legs could cut off the target's bones. While grinding the flesh, it could shatter the bones and cause damage to the target's internal organs. This allowed the execution blade insect to leave the flesh-mincing blade insect far behind in terms of individual strength. There was no need for the insect queen to use other abilities. Just by producing the execution blade insects, the insect swarm's strength would be greatly improved. Originally, the insect queen's elite ability was the armor evasion ladybug, but now, it was the armor tremor ladybug. Although there was only a one-word difference in the name, its defensive ability was greatly enhanced. The armor tremor ladybug was a defense-type phase head ability. The armor tremor ladybug didn't just obtain this defensive ability when fighting against phase that attacked with the body. When fighting against phase that attacked with the element, the armor tremor ladybug could also use the armor to effectively block part of the attack. In the past, the armor evasion ladybug had been very passive and weak when facing phase that attacked with the element. The armor evasion ladybug's evolution allowed the insect swarm's defense to be enhanced. The silver ability was originally the plasma caterpillar, but it was now the plasma current electric worm. There was no change in the ability, but the amount of plasma released had increased. Originally, the plasma caterpillar would spit out balls of plasma. Now, the plasma current electric worm could spit out a terrifying amount of plasma like a stream. It might not have been tested, but at least one plasma current electric worm should be able to match 5 or more plasma caterpillars. The insect queen's gold ability was originally the lightning gathering moth. Now, it was the electromagnetic chrysalis moth. The lightning-gathering moth was originally used with the plasma caterpillar. By gathering the plasma spat out by the plasma caterpillar, it could deal high-intensity electric damage. It was also one of the insect swarm's few elemental attacks. Now that the electromagnetic chrysalis was in the chrysalis state, it could quickly gather plasma, and the plasma cannon's firing speed had increased. At the same time, in the chrysalis state, it could also consume plasma and manipulate the magnetic field to control the opponent. Magnetism was a variant of the electric attribute. The control ability of such a niche attribute was often stronger than the control of the general attribute, and it was often difficult to control. An electromagnetic chrysalis in the chrysalis state might not have a strong ability to manipulate the magnetic field. However, the insect queen was fully capable of producing a large number of electromagnetic chrysalis to control the target. Anyway, the magnetic field control ability could be stacked. After the transformation, the plasma current electric worm could spit out a huge amount of plasma, which was enough to support the electromagnetic chrysalis consumption. It made the already extraordinary linkage even more powerful. As for the platinum ability, it had changed from the original hurricane owlet moth to the silent night moth, which mainly enhanced the concealment ability. It just so happened that Lu Jie liked to use the original hurricane owlet moth as a scouting fae in battles. By relying on the hurricane owlet moth's high-speed flight, he could seize the initiative in field battles. But now, be it day or night, the silent night moth's concealment ability was greatly enhanced. As before, it could complete the scouting mission better. He no longer had to worry about being discovered by the enemy during the scouting process. Chapter 1793. When other faes were upgraded, they would only be enhanced in one aspect, and there wouldn't be much change. Just like Genius and Chimey, after their bloodline metamorphosis, their combat enhancement was not as great as the Insect Queen's enhancement. The Insect Queen's improvement wasn't just limited to its combat capabilities. The Insect Queen had received an all-around improvement. Attack, defense, support, control, and investigation all in one. At that moment, Lin Yuan finally understood why a source-type life form like the Insect Queen would occupy all of a person's spiritual energy. The spirit chi professionals who had contracted the Insect Queen would not be able to contract other faes. After a freak combination of mutations and upgrades, the Insect Queen, a source-type life form, had truly evolved. He showed his ferocious side. At the same time, Lin Yuan gradually became clear about what he had been guessing. During the evolution process, faes might not seem to have anything to rely on, but there were traces to be found. For example, after the Insect Queen evolved, The original flesh-mincing blade insect could only shred the flesh of the target when attacking, but he couldn't deal with the bones. However, after he evolved into a execution blade insect, he was able to make up for his shortcomings in the treatment of his bones. The hurricane owlet moths were mostly used for reconnaissance rather than combat. Therefore, when it transformed into the silent night moth, it focused on strengthening its concealment abilities. From this, Lin Yuan knew that he could use special means to guide the phase abilities in which direction they would develop. He planned to experiment and see if the phase that he constantly guided could produce the abilities that he wanted. Lin Yuan looked up at Lu Jie and said, "That's right. Brother Lu, if your insect queen were to fight against Xianxia now, it would definitely be able to delay him for more than twice the time." Although Lu Jie's insect queen had improved in all aspects, it was still not enough to fight someone of the younger generation like Xianxia, who was qualified to be chosen as a freelancer. It was still very difficult. However, being able to delay Xianxia by more than double the time was already very impressive. If he waited for the insect queen to arrive, it would have the strength of a suzerain level 10 Myth 2 pinnacle before going against Xianxia. It would be very difficult for Xianxia to deal with the insect queen without using his 8-star sacred source life form Hidden Sea Muse. After all, a pinnacle suzerain/Myth 2 insect queen could produce phase of the same grade as itself by consuming a large amount of spirit chi and insect protein. Although Lu Jie was happy that his strength had improved, he had never been arrogant. He did not feel satisfied with his strength. Even with such a huge improvement, there was still a huge gap between him and Lin Yuan. It could be said that Lu Jie had been trying his best to catch up with Lin Yuan's footsteps. He hoped that Lin would not fall too much. Otherwise, his sword or shield would lose its meaning. "Lin Yuan, you said that you are going to train in a few days. Bring me along this time." 3 of the insect-type carcinoma phase controlled by the insect queen died in the battle. I will let the insect queen fill up the empty spots of these insect-type carcinoma phase in the next few days. Then, let those insect-type carcinoma phase that are extremely helpful to the insect swarm fuse with the cocoon demon embryos and transform into demons. Demon insect Lu insect Lin, demon Lu insect queen insect. As an insect-type carcinoma fae, the blade queen bee had become a 4-winged demon. It had gained sentience and could comprehend willpower runes on its own. Demon was, and would had, demon. Instead, demon, unable to advance into a fantasy breed. Lu Jie had been thinking about which insect species carcinoma phase he should let combine with the source-type demon embryo. There were only a few cocoon demon embryos. Every time he used one, there would be one less. As the insect queen's spiritual energy grew, the number of insect-type carcinoma phase it could control would gradually increase. This left Lu Jie with 2 options. The first option was for Lu Jie to combine those extremely harmful insect species carcinoma phase with the cocoon demon embryos. These insect-type carcinoma phase would be the final weapon. The other option was for Lu Jie to enhance the insect species carcinoma phase that could assist the insect queen in battle, using himself as the ultimate weapon. The insect queen's evolution and metamorphosis made Lu Jie decide on his second choice. Only one's own strength was the foundation of everything. Furthermore, a diamond/legend insect-type carcinoma fae was already capable of causing a huge disaster. Under some special circumstances, such as the water area created by Longtime and Xianxia, it was extremely dangerous. With the help of the Diamond X/legend nether floating hatworm, Lu Jie could turn the entire body of water into a sticky gelatinous substance. The nether floating hatworm's strength would increase again, but there wouldn't be much change in its nature. After making his choice, Lu Jie planned to enter seclusion for a few days. Afterward, Lu Jie just needed to wait for the insect-type carcinoma fae to transform into a demon and evolve into a fantasy breed. Therefore, in the following period of time, Lu Jie wanted to fulfill his responsibility as a retainer. During his previous conversation with Lin Yuan, Lu Jie knew of Lin Yuan's plans for the Aghawan continent. Even though the Aghawan continent didn't have any Class 5 creation masters, the Divine Wood Federation, the Iron Hammer Federation, and the Deep Brahmin Federation had been established for hundreds of years. Even though the three federations had been fighting openly and covertly for hundreds of years, it had never been broken. This was enough to show that the three federations had formed a certain tacit understanding. Or rather, it was a delicate balance. Lin Yuan was an outsider, and he was destined to be targeted by the three federations. Lu Jie had previously trained with Lin Yuan in the Divine Wood Federation. It could be said that the Divine Wood Federation was filled with danger, be it inside or outside the city. Lin Yuan's strength was enough to deal with this problem. Lu Jie also wanted to follow by Lin Yuan's side and do his part. When Lin Yuan heard Lu Jie's words, he smiled brightly and said, "Big brother Lu, I was just about to tell you. In a few days, we will set off for the Divine Wood Federation together." "In a few days, we will set off for the Divine Wood Federation together," Han Li said. Lin Yuan's previous attitude toward the Agawan continent was like boiling a frog in warm water. Now that he knew that the item to complete Morbius came from a dimensional world. Therefore, he simply boiled the Agawan continent and strived to solve all the problems in the Agawan continent within half a year. Thus, they decided to use a fierce fire to cook the continent. They strived to solve all the problems on the continent within half a year. The Radiance 100 sequence assessment and the team battle had only taken less than 4 days. While Lin Yuan was talking with Lu Jie, the two of them had already returned to the Return from Faraway Mansion. Lin Yuan had only left the Return from Faraway Mansion for 4 days. However, before Lin Yuan and Lu Jie returned home, their mentality had already changed drastically. 7017K. Chapter 1794. When they left, Lin Yuan and Lu Jie were determined to face any battle. But they had never been under such pressure and responsibility. When the glory of the Federation was carried on the shoulders of a few people, it would accelerate the growth of these few people. After returning home, Lin Yuan was completely relaxed and stretched his back. The first thing he planned to do was to sort out the spoils of war he had obtained from the battle. Lin Yuan's spoils of war were extremely plentiful. Han Qi alone had provided him with a total of 3 artifacts, one of which was a Class 5 artifact. Apart from that, there were the bodies of dead devils and fays. There was also a large accumulation of resources in Han Qi's spatial box. Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's wealth had been collected by Lu O when the Great Devil had devoured them. Lin Yuan had originally planned to share these resources with his other teammates. But because Lin Yuan had turned the situation around, he had been the main attacker in the later stages. Therefore, Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng, Lu Yifan, and the others had insisted on not taking these resources. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the portion of the 3 sacred source life forms that Luo had yet to digest had great research value. At the same time, this portion was very suitable to be made into artifacts. In fact, the one who had contributed the most resources to Lin Yuan was definitely Qian Yu, who was the 3rd Freedom Envoy. Through Lin Yuan's investigation, Qian Yu's spatial box had much more items than the others. Qian Yu's Class 8 Sacred Source life form and Hidden Sea Muse's body. This was an unimaginable amount of wealth. It was definitely not an easy task to nurture a Sacred Source life form to Class 8. Lin Yuan had already confirmed that the additional power in his body after fusing with Bai Lan was the power of the mermaid bloodline. Otherwise, this power would not have been able to affect Qian Yu, who had fused with Hidden Sea Muse. Although the bloodline power in Hidden Sea Muse's body was much lower than the bloodline power in Bai Lan and Lin Yuan's body after fusing. However, Lin Yuan and Hidden Sea Muse's bloodline came from the same source. During the artifact forging process, if there was a higher grade bloodline, it could completely enhance the bloodline in the artifact. In other words, when Di Wanmi, a Class 5 creation master, took the Hidden Sea Muse's body and refined it into an artifact, he could use his bloodline to enhance the mermaid bloodline in the artifact. This way, Lin Yuan would be able to obtain a treasure that was compatible with him. Previously, Lin Yuan had only used a spatial artifact, which he had used for storage. If he could obtain an 8-star artifact that was compatible with his bloodline, his strength would definitely have a qualitative leap. Of course, what Lin Yuan was most looking forward to was letting Morbius absorb that green crystal. Lin Yuan then chose a spirit-locked Fey to bind and unlock its abilities, apart from its normal abilities. However, before Lin Yuan could return to his room, Xue Shuo jumped from his hair and landed on the ground. Then, he transformed into his human form. After Xue Shuo transformed into his human form, he saw Blue Lotus, White Phoenix, and the Mother of Bloodbath. A beautiful woman wearing a purple fur coat walked out of the house. The sky-favored spirit was capable of perfectly concealing its aura. As long as it did not reveal its aura, no one would be able to sense it. However, Lin Yuan was still able to confirm the woman's identity immediately. This beautiful woman in a purple fur coat must be the Grand Master of the Blessed Heavens Mansion that Xue Shuo had mentioned, Ziqing. A few of them wanted to congratulate Lin Yuan, especially the beautiful woman in the purple fur coat. Her eyes were filled with gratitude toward Lin Yuan. As a Fey, the favored spirit valued friendship and promises the most. Putting aside the possibility of Lin Yuan reviving Jade Gui, just the fact that he had saved the Mother of Bloodbath several times was enough for Ziqing to regard him as a benefactor. Before Blue Lotus, White Phoenix, and the Mother of Bloodbath could congratulate Lin Yuan, he did not wait for Ziqing to thank Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan walked over with a serious expression. "You must be Senior Ziqing. I heard from Uncle Blood that you came to the land of lava of the Radiance sect and took away most of Auntie Jade Gui's remnant soul. Now that you're here, why don't you release these broken souls? I want to see if I can revive Aunt Yu Gui's soul. If you have enough broken souls, you should be able to carry out a simple soul communication with Aunt Yu Gui." Originally, Xue Shuo, Ziqing, Lan Lian, and Bai Feng were very grateful to Lin Yuan. Now, Lin Yuan's actions let the four of them know. Lin Yuan really treated this matter as an important matter. Now should be the time to enjoy the cheers and praise. When Lin Yuan saw his arrival, the first thing he thought of was to revive Jade Gui's soul. This made the gratitude they had for Lin Yuan multiply. The Mother of Bloodbath looked at Lin Yuan with clear eyes. In the end, it could not hold it in anymore. It stepped forward and gave Lin Yuan a hug. Then, it whispered in Lin Yuan's ear. "Lin Yuan, thank you." When Lin Yuan heard that, he only thought that the Mother of Bloodbath was excited because it was about to have a chance to communicate with its mother's soul. Lin Yuan said, "You're my path protector. Why are you so polite with me?" While speaking, Lin Yuan summoned the Soul Remembrance Whale. The Mother of Bloodbath let go of Lin Yuan's embrace and stood at the side. Its gaze toward Lin Yuan became gentler and a little ashamed at the same time. As Lin Yuan's path protector, the number of times Lin Yuan had saved it was definitely more than the number of times it had saved Lin Yuan. Ziqing did not know the Mother of Bloodbath's feelings for Lin Yuan. However, Blue Lotus, White Phoenix, and Xue Shuo, who had been with Lin Yuan for a long time, could see it. The three of them had been completely shocked by Lin Yuan's words. No matter how they looked at it, the Mother of Bloodbath's hug just now could not have been out of politeness. Could this be the legendary straight man? A straight man who was handsome could also be destined to be alone for life. The Soul Remembrance Whale swam around Lin Yuan intimately. Xue Shuo had already seen the mysteries of the Soul Remembrance Whale. However, it was the first time Blue Lotus, White Phoenix, and Ziqing had seen such a legendary creature. The three of them could not see the Soul Remembrance Whale, but they could feel that there was a creature beside Lin Yuan that was interacting with him intimately. Ziqing took a deep breath and took out the orange-red silk handkerchief that looked like it was cut from the sunset. After taking out this silk handkerchief, Ziqing was clearly looking forward to Jade Gui's soul being revived so that she could communicate with Jade Gui like before. However, Ziqing had the guts to barge into the pagoda cannon's base and risk her life to kill the Page of Destiny. At this moment, she was timid. Although Lin Yuan had just given everyone a reassurance, Ziqing was still very afraid. In the end, she would receive news that Jade Gui's soul could not be revived. 7017K. Chapter 1795. When faced with the question of whether or not the person closest to him could be revived, no matter how determined and courageous a person was, they would not be able to face it calmly. This was probably what people meant by being overly concerned. If Ziqing didn't know about it, the Jade Gui might come back to life. Ziqing, who had not walked out of her sorrow for many years, was able to slowly fade her scars and turn most of her sorrow into longing. Occasionally, he would look at this silk handkerchief, which contained a large number of remnant souls of the jade pendant, and miss the jade pendant. However, Ziqing's heart was once again filled with hope. While she was happy, she was also extremely afraid. Ziqing was afraid that her expectations would be dashed and she would lose the jade gray again. This was her good sister who had accompanied her for thousands of years. Being disappointed again was not something that Ziqing could not accept the most. At most, it would just be another round of pain. What Ziqing couldn't accept the most was that Yu Gui's broken soul would vanish after failing. In that case, he would truly lose the last shred of bond between him and the Jade Gui. Lin Yuan could see Ziqing's internal struggle. Lin Yuan was not in a hurry to take the orange handkerchief from Ziqing. Lin Yuan learned from his master, the Moon Empress, that Yu Gui used to be the second hall master of the heaven-blessed mansion. He had a deep relationship with Ziqing. The resurrection Jade Gui was not only related to the mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua. It was also related to Ziqing and the other heavenly chosen spirits of the heaven-blessed dojo. After the confrontation with the Freedom Federation's envoys, Lin Yuan's attitude had changed. It also made him more mature. Although his master, the Moon Empress, had never told him about it. However, he knew very well that he could treat the mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua as one of their own. However, facing Lan Lian, Bai Feng, and Ziqing was equivalent to negotiating with the Blessed Dojo. Invisibly, Lin Yuan was representing Hui Yao. Shueshua and the mother of Bloodbath had seen how the soul whale collected souls with their own eyes. The mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua had both sensed the remnant soul of the Jade Gui that the soul whale had collected in the land of lava. Therefore, compared to Ziqing, the two of them were much more relaxed. The mother of Bloodbath, which had been with Lin Yuan for a long time, understood his character better. If it was something he could not do, he would never agree to it so easily. Shueshua said to Ziqing, "Big Sister Ziqing, I have personally witnessed Lin Yuan's abilities." Back then, Lin Yuan was able to collect all of the Jade Gui's remnant souls in the entire lava field. Now, I can face the remnant soul in the silk handkerchief as well. Furthermore, even if something goes wrong and fails in the end, these remnant souls will not disappear. Hearing Shueshua's words, Ziqing took a deep breath. Then, she took a step forward and handed the orange silk handkerchief to Lin Yuan with both hands. "Thank you very much. Regardless of whether this matter succeeds or not, just because you saved Shueqing, you are already the benefactor of our heaven's blessed mansion." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan did not respond. After receiving the tangerine red silk handkerchief, Lin Yuan was not in a hurry to let the thought soul whale use its soul knot ability. Instead, he told the soul remembrance whale to release the remnant soul of the Jade Gui that it had collected earlier. He said in a serious tone, "I won't joke around with Aunt Jade Gui's soul. Actually, the reason why I need more of Aunt Yu Gui's soul isn't just to revive her. It's also so that after Aunt Yu Gui's soul is revived, she can obtain more memories from her previous life. If it wasn't for the sake of recovering her memories, as long as I obtain a bit of Aunt Yu Gui's remnant soul and nourish it, it can grow into a complete soul." Lin Yuan's words were equivalent to taking the initiative to expose his trump card to Ziqing. Lin Yuan's words shocked everyone present. This included the mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua. Back then, Lin Yuan had mentioned the soul remembrance whale's ability to the mother of Bloodbath and Shueshua. However, neither of them had expected the soul remembrance whale's ability to be so heaven-defying. As long as it obtained a trace of remnant soul and nourished it, it could revive the remnant soul. It had to be known that Yu Gui had been dead for many years. If he could search for her soul after so many years, wouldn't that mean that Lin Yuan had the ability to revive the dead? Even experts who had embarked on the path to ascension did not deserve such an ability. Lin Yuan had taken the initiative to expose his ability to give Ziqing, Blue Lotus, and White Phoenix a reassurance. Secondly, the fact that the Pagoda Canon and the Freedom Federation had a deal was already set in stone. The Heaven Blessed Dojo had always been neutral, and Lin Yuan wanted to win over a powerful ally like the Heaven-blessed Dojo for the Radiance Federation. Thirdly, everyone present was worthy of Lin Yuan's trust. After Lin Yuan's words, Ziqing and the others were momentarily shocked, and their faces were filled with pleasant surprise. Because Lin Yuan had already confirmed that Yu Gui's soul could be revived. Now, there was even a pleasant surprise. If it really was as Lin Yuan said, and Yu Gui absorbed the remnant soul in the silk handkerchief and obtained its memories, then wouldn't he be able to communicate with Yu Gui in a real sense? Seeing that Ziqing and the others were relieved, Lin Yuan did not take the initiative to communicate with Ziqing again. Instead, he tossed the silk handkerchief in his hand to the soul remembrance whale. He let the soul remembrance whale use its soul binding skill on the silk handkerchief. When the soul remembrance whale used its soul binding skill, it would absorb the soul into its body. When Yu Gui had just died in the land of lava, Ziqing had rushed to Hui Yao, saved Xue Shua, and taken away Yu Gui's remnant soul. Through the strength of his soul, he could be sure. Jade Gui was definitely a living being who had stepped into the eternal realm, and had only been a step away from the eternal realm. Any living being that achieved eternal eternity would have their own soul color. A large number of colored souls were sucked into the soul remembrance whale. Ziqing, Xue Shua, and the others still couldn't see the remembrance soul whale. However, he could see that Jade Gui's soul was flowing and gathering inside an unknown creature. Lin Yuan found that these souls that were constantly gathering were undergoing a delicate reorganization and combination. The recombination and fusion of souls was one of the most secretive existences in life. The others didn't even have the chance to investigate. If it wasn't for the fact that Yu Gui's soul had reached the level of eternity, even if Lin Yuan had the psychic soul whale, he would not have the opportunity to see the magnificent scene of soul recombination created by life. At that moment, Lin Yuan deeply felt the reverence for life. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan fell into a wonderful comprehension. A willpower rune that was constantly shattering and reassembling like a soul appeared in his spiritual spatial zone. Ziqing, Lan Lian, Bai Feng, and Xue Shua did not find it strange that Lin Yuan had suddenly entered an epiphany. Even if the four of them had reached such a high level of strength, they still felt enlightened when they saw the soul recombination. It couldn't be more normal for Lin Yuan to be able to comprehend something from it and condense a willpower rune. Lin Yuan was a prodigy of Hui Yao and the Moon Empress disciple. His comprehension ability must be astonishing. However, the mother of Bloodbath felt that all of this was abnormal. 7017K. Chapter 1796. The mother of Bloodbath had always been by Lin Yuan's side as his path protector. He could not remember how many willpower runes he had comprehended. In the mother of Bloodbath's opinion, comprehending a willpower rune was easier than drinking water for others. Right at this moment, a neigh suddenly sounded. The moment this cry rang out, a vast amount of soul energy surged out. If it wasn't for Ziqing using her aura to envelop the entire space, she wouldn't have been able to survive. If this vast soul energy was released, it would even shake up half of the imperial city. Spiritual creatures that had reached the eternal realm would normally try their best to restrain their auras. However, the current Yu Gui clearly didn't have the ability to conceal the aura of his soul. He was certain of that hiss just now. The voice came from the soul of the Jade Gui. This hissing sound was obviously made by an arachnid fae. However, it was completely different from ordinary arachne faes. There was no viciousness or ruthlessness in this cry. Instead, there was a sense of gentleness. Just like how the sun shines on all things. Hearing this sound, it came from the spider's soul. Xue Shua, Ziqing, and Lan Lian, who had been suppressing their emotions, revealed bright smiles at the same time. Xue Shua's eyes were gold and red. Ziqing's deep purple eyes were like the starry sky. Lan Lian's blue eyes seemed to encompass the entire world. At the same time, hot, crystal-clear tears fell from her eyes. Even Bai Feng, who had always been carefree, had tears in her eyes, and her lips were trembling slightly. When a heavenly favored spirit reached the eternal realm, its soul would be complete and it would be at its peak. If his soul was exposed outside his body, it would emit a soul sound. That spider cry just now was none other than Yu Gui's soul voice. At this moment, the remembrance soul whale released the soul that it had already condensed in its body through the bone horn on its forehead. A woman who looked similar to the mother of Bloodbath but had a completely different style appeared in the open space beside Lin Yuan as a soul. The mother of Bloodbath's eyes were cold, and so was its expression. However, when this woman smiled, she was able to heal one's heart. She was so gentle that it seemed as if water would drip out of her. At that moment, the woman's eyes were fixed on the mother of Bloodbath. He opened his arms toward the mother of Bloodbath. Before this woman, who was a soul manifestation, could take the initiative to step forward, the mother of Bloodbath took a step forward. He threw himself into the woman's arms. Ever since it could remember, the mother of Bloodbath, which had been struggling to survive in the jungle alone, had indeed hated its parents for abandoning it. It was especially so when they were attacked by natural enemies, starved, or looking at other fays when they were reunited with their family. But slowly, this feeling of resentment disappeared. This was because the mother of Bloodbath did not even know who to blame. For the mother of Bloodbath to have such a deep friendship with Endless Summer, it was enough to show that the mother of Bloodbath valued friendship. However, when the mother of Bloodbath found out about its origins and met Xue Shua, all the misunderstandings were resolved. It could be said that the mother of Bloodbath was always looking forward to its mother's resurrection. Bloodline and nature made the mother of Bloodbath feel an indescribable warmth that it had never felt before from this woman who resembled itself. At this moment, Xue Shua also came forward. It opened its arms and hugged the mother of Bloodbath and the woman's soul projection into its embrace. After a long time, this long-separated family of three finally loosened their embrace. He let go of the jade gui in his arms and bowed deeply to Lin Yuan. His tone was solemn and grateful. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to see my daughter, husband, and companions." After thanking Lin Yuan solemnly, the jade gui turned around and looked at Ziqing. He walked in front of Ziqing and said softly, "Big sister, long time no see." The return from faraway manor was full of warmth. At first, Chu Si had wanted to go out to welcome Lin Yuan, but she was held back by Wenyu. The smart Chu Si quickly understood why Wenyu was holding her back. However, the things that needed to be dealt with had been dealt with. Chu Si threw herself into Lin Yuan's arms just like the mother of Bloodbath had thrown herself into the jade gui's arms. Chu Si did not say anything and just gently hugged Lin Yuan's neck. Whether it was the battle with Han Qi on the general execution platform or the 5-person team battle, Chu Si had always been in a state of worry. To ordinary Star Web viewers, what they saw was a Radiance prodigy risking his life to protect Radiance's glory. In Chu Si's opinion, this duel was her brother fighting to the death. Chu Si had no impression of her parents. Chu Si and Lin Yuan had grown up relying on each other. With Lin Yuan as her brother, Chu Si had not been envious of her classmates who had parents. "You have parents and I have a brother. The love and care I received was no less than the love and care you received." Lin Yuan was Chu Si's everything. Even after becoming Tsang Yu's disciple, Lin Yuan's position in Chu Si's heart had not changed. Thus, the moment she realized that Lin Yuan might die in the battle, Chu Si became anxious. However, Chu Si had no other way. It could be said that Chu Si had never been so eager to improve her strength as she was now. Fortunately, Lin Yuan was fine. It was not until the moment she hugged Lin Yuan that the original worry in Chu Si's heart faded. Wenyu stood at the entrance of the mansion, smiling as she looked at Lin Yuan, who was hugged by Chu Si's neck. It had been so long, and the Celestial Council should convene again. After the Radiance 100 sequence selection, Lin Yuan finally had time to vigorously develop Sky City. The Radiance Sacred Hall was currently closed. On normal days, the Radiance Sacred Hall was basically not open to the public. Only the current Radiance 100 sequence members, Radiance Envoys, Radiance Knights, and Her Holiness could freely enter and exit. As the Radiance 100 sequence selection had just been held, the 100 sequence members had just left the Radiance Sacred Hall. Thus, there should not be a single person inside the Radiance Sacred Hall at this time. However, the Moon Empress and an old man in a wheelchair were in the Radiance Sacred Hall. It was as though they were waiting for someone to arrive. At that moment, ripples appeared in the space in front of the Moon Empress and the old man. Golden red waves rippled out from the spatial ripples. A woman with a golden red fishtail and a veil covering her body appeared in front of the Moon Empress and the old man. The Moon Empress looked at the Pity Goddess and did not speak. The Pity Goddess had never thought of putting on airs in front of the Moon Empress. This was because the Pity Goddess had been constantly squeezing Nana's benefits in order to express goodwill to Radiance. The Moon Empress and the old man had been waiting here because the Pity Goddess had sent a message to the Moon Empress and the old man's life providences. This was a method that could only be mastered by those who had embarked on the path to heaven. It was also one of the most secretive methods of transmitting messages. Looking at the Moon Empress and the old man in front of her, the Pity Goddess's expression became serious. 7017K. Chapter 1797. Lian Shen appeared for a long time. She looked at the elder on the wheelchair beside the Moon Empress and didn't say a single word. Lian Shen was currently weighing the pros and cons in her mind. He was weighing what kind of attitude he should use to communicate with the Moon Empress, or rather, Huiyao. After all, the goddess of compassion was a majesty of the Freedom Federation. Given the status of the compassion goddess, she should not have appeared in the Radiance Sacred Hall to communicate with the enemies of the Freedom Federation. However, Lian Shen had no choice but to make this trip. Now that Qian Yu was dead, Goddess Lian could only pin her hopes on Lin Yuan. In fact, if Lin Yuan had not displayed a mermaid bloodline that far surpassed Qian Yu's, Lu O would not have needed to summon Nana at all. Then, Lian Shen would act and protect Qian Yu. Goddess Lian had her own reasons for wanting to improve her strength. It was because of this reason that the Goddess of Mercy appeared here. The matter of him using his mermaid bloodline to tread on the path to heaven should be known by all the powerful beings of the origin world. However, he needed to obtain the love of the Imperial Mermaid in order to improve his strength again. This matter had always been a secret of the Lian God. This secret was known to the second page of the Revival Pagoda canon, the Mirror God, and the Foolish God. No matter what Goddess Lian said, she couldn't let Huiyao know about this. After all, Lin Yuan was in the Radiance. If the Radiance faction found out and one of its majesties was afraid of him, they might attack him through Lin Yuan's strength. Then he would have no place to cry. Previously, Lian Shen had dug 3 feet into the ground in order to find a creature with mermaid bloodline. After searching for several years, he finally found Qian Yu after one of them died. Therefore, the Compassion Goddess was probably more worried about Lin Yuan's safety than the Radiance faction. The Moon Empress had always been one of the most hated existences of the Mercy Goddess. No matter what the reason was, he had poured a lot of resources and painstakingly nurtured a highness who had almost awakened the mermaid royal bloodline. However, this person had been killed by the Moon Empress when he had come to Radiance to carry out a mission. If not for the fact that the Goddess of Compassion had descended upon the Radiance Sacred Hall to protect Qian Yu, the Lian deity would definitely make a move against the Moon Empress and fight to the death with her. But now, Lian Shen no longer had any hatred for the Moon Empress. Or rather, it was not good to have any more hatred. After all, the Moon Empress was Lin Yuan's master. If he wanted to obtain Lin Yuan's love, he had to obtain the Moon Empress' approval. When Na and the Moon Empress confronted each other, the Moon Empress stood in front of Lin Yuan. Through the way Lin Yuan looked at the Moon Empress, the Lian God knew how close the relationship between them was. Lian deity was lost in her thoughts. However, the Moon Empress' brows were tightly furrowed. The old man sitting in the wheelchair touched the armrest of his yellow dragonwood chair and said, "Compassionate Goddess, you deliberately returned to Radiance and used your life providence to ask us to meet. Don't tell me it's just to stare at us. I'm old. If that's the case, I won't waste any more time with you." Hearing this, the corners of Lian deity's lips curled up. The Compassion God had 3 plans in mind. These 3 plans would gradually strip away the Compassionate Goddess's benefits. What the Goddess of Mercy hated the most was when her own interests were harmed. Thus, The compassion goddess decided to start with the plan that was most beneficial to her. Moon Empress, that youth named Black, who is also known as Lin Yuan, should be your disciple, right? When the Moon Empress heard the compassion god's words, she suddenly frowned. This was because she still remembered that the compassion god had publicly stated that she wanted to take Lin Yuan as her favored. She wanted to take Lin Yuan back to the Freedom Federation. At that time, the Moon Empress was so furious that she almost couldn't help but attack the compassion god. Lin Yuan could be said to be the person she valued the most. The Moon Empress could not stand any poaching. This had nothing to do with dignity. It was just a subconscious reaction in the Moon Empress' heart. However, now that the Moon Empress heard the compassion god's words, she no longer felt that uncontrollable anger. At that time, the compassion god had said such words in public, which could be understood as a spur of the moment. She had taken a fancy to Lin Yuan's talent. But now, the compassion god had said it. The Moon Empress could no longer understand it this way. The Moon Empress could be sure that the compassion god had targeted Lin Yuan for some reason. Now, she had specifically invited her here to talk about this matter. This showed that the compassion god was determined to obtain Lin Yuan no matter what. This made the Moon Empress killing intent sore. The Moon Empress looked at the old man beside her, and the old man immediately understood the meaning in the Moon Empress' eyes. The Moon Empress wanted to make a move with him to keep the compassion god. Although the Radiance and the Freedom Federation were bound to fight, if they really made a move on the compassion god, regardless of whether they could kill or severely injure the compassion god, the conflict between the Radiance and the Freedom Federation would quickly erupt. Now, the Radiance's mirror city in the Abyss world was still under construction. It would take at least more than a year to be completed. Therefore, the Radiance Federation had to fight for the 2-year buffer period before the 10,000 Nations Conference. The compassion god was not that easy to kill. The Moon Empress had the intention to kill the compassion god because the Rabbit Emperor's strength had also increased. However, no one knew if the compassion god, who had awakened her birth providence many years ago, had any hidden tricks. Making a move in the Radiance Sacred Hall was bound to threaten the royal capital's residents. However, the old man knew. The Moon Empress had made up her mind. Otherwise, she would not have made such a decision at this time. At that moment, the old man heard the compassion god continue to speak. Moon Empress, I can use the Freedom Federation and all the information and intelligence you want to know to exchange for Lin Yuan. When the Moon Empress and the old man heard this, their expressions froze. Although the Moon Empress' intention to kill the compassion god had not changed, her gaze had begun to re-examine the compassion god. The compassion god's words were equivalent to completely betraying the Freedom Federation. This was a situation that the Moon Empress and the old man had never thought of. A trace of doubt arose in the hearts of the Moon Empress and the old man. That was why Lin Yuan was so attractive to the compassion god. Why was the compassion god willing to make such a decision? After Lianshan said that, she stared at the Moon Empress' face intently. She wanted to see the change in the Moon Empress' attitude. In the compassion god's opinion, she should be able to achieve her goal by saying this. This was because her words were equivalent to bringing unimaginable benefits to the Radiance Federation. It would allow the Radiance Federation to have the upper hand in the battle with the Freedom Federation. However, the Moon Empress' expression let the compassion god know that her idea had fallen through. Although the Moon Empress was moved by what she said, her firm expression showed that she had no intention of abandoning her disciple from the beginning to the end. The compassion god, who already knew the answer, did not give the Moon Empress a chance to reject her. She continued with her second plan. 7017K. Chapter 1798. Lien God pondered for a moment and said, Lin Yuan, I can stay in Radiance, but I need a chance to talk to him face to face at any time. Apart from that, as a Class 5 Creation Master, I should be able to reach the Moon Empress level soon. I can provide a sum of Creation Master resources to Radiance every month. This sum of Creation Master resources will take up about 7 days of my time. After speaking, Lien God did not say anything else. She continued to look at the Moon Empress expression. When the Moon Empress heard Lien God's words, her eyes narrowed. The Moon Empress knew very well that she had to clarify this matter with Lien God today. It was obvious that Lien God would not let Lin Yuan go. Lien God was willing to take out such a large sum of resources in exchange for a chance to talk to Lin Yuan face to face at any time. In the Moon Empress' opinion, this was rather absurd. According to Lien God, apart from the Freedom Federation's secrets, she was also willing to work for Radiance for 7 days every month. It was equivalent to giving Hui Yao 3 months of his time in a year and working for Hui Yao. This was equivalent to giving Radiance a quarter of Class 5 Creation Masters. If Lien God could also break through and become a Class 6 Creation Master. As a Class 6 Creation Master, the Moon Empress understood the difference in productivity between Class 6 and Class 5 Creation Masters. Not only could a Class 6 Creation Master purify the Eternal Heart, but their productivity was also 4 times that of a Class 5 Creation Master. In other words, once Lien God became a Class 6 Creation Master, it was equivalent to Radiance having an additional Class 5 Creation Master. This would greatly improve Radiance's top combat power. The Moon Empress wanted to make a move on Lien God because of her concern for Lin Yuan. As his master, she did not wish for Lin Yuan to be in any danger or trouble. However, Lien God did not intend to harm Lin Yuan, and she wanted to keep Lin Yuan in Radiance under the Moon Empress' eyes. With the Moon Empress looking after Lin Yuan could not be in any danger. Moreover, the Mansion Masters of the Heaven-Blessed Mansion, as well as the Grand Mansion Master Ziqing, were all present. They were all in Lin Yuan's mansion. Back then, the Moon Empress had made the Mother of Bloodbath Lin Yuan's path protector because she knew the Mother of Bloodbath's origin. The Moon Empress wanted to create an opportunity for Lin Yuan to form a relationship with the Heaven-Blessed Mansion. In the end, not only had he seized this opportunity, but he had also used his sincerity to exchange for the Heaven-Blessed Mansion's friendship. Under the watchful eyes of the Mansion Lords of the Blessed Dojo, no matter how powerful Goddess Lien was, she would not be able to escape. It was also impossible to openly take him away or harm him. Now, the Moon Empress had to figure out why the compassionate goddess was willing to pay such a huge price to communicate with Lin Yuan face to face. The Moon Empress' sharp gaze landed on Lien Shen. Seeing this, Lien Shen could not help but feel nervous. Lien Shen felt a little regretful. Perhaps she shouldn't have informed the Moon Empress or this old man from Radiance in advance. He wanted to make a deal with the two of them. Instead, he should find a chance to secretly contact Lin Yuan when the two of them were not paying attention. What if the Moon Empress rejected him and hid Lin Yuan in the Radiant Moon Palace? In that case, he really had no chance at all. Just as God Lien was considering whether she should bring up the third option, Zhang Xian's voice suddenly rang out. The Moon Empress said, "I can bring you to see my disciples. It's just that I must know why you're meeting my disciple. Otherwise, not only will you not be able to see my disciples, but I will also make you stay." As she spoke, a clear radiance appeared beside the Moon Empress. Within the clear radiance, a purple aura rose. A pure white rabbit holding a carrot appeared. It appeared in the Moon Empress' arms. The purple aura in the rabbit's eyes rose and instantly froze the Radiance Sacred Hall's space. Lien Shen sensed the stagnation of the space around her and looked at the rabbit in the Moon Empress' arms with a serious expression. I didn't expect the Rabbit Emperor to have reached such a level. The birth providence has already ignited. As she spoke, she turned to look at the Moon Empress. Moon Empress, don't think that the Rabbit Emperor can really make me stay just because he has reached the level of the Mirror God and the Fool God. If I want to leave, I can summon my sacred source life form, Qi Lustful River. No one can stop me. This time, I'm sincerely here to negotiate with you. I believe my promise and actions have already expressed my sincerity. If you were confronting Nana just now, I wouldn't have said those words. Nana will definitely not leave so easily. As for why I want to see your disciples, I don't want to say it. But if you bring me to meet your disciples, you will be able to hear everything I say. When the Moon Empress heard the Lien Shen's words, she did not know what to say for a moment. The Moon Empress realized that the pitiful goddess was no longer as arrogant as she used to be. Her expression had become unusually sincere and gentle. However, the Moon Empress knew the Lianshen very well. The Lianshen was an extremely selfish person, or rather, the High Lords of the Freedom Federation were all the same. However, the other members of the Freedom Federation would not be like the Lianshen, who would harm the interests of the entire Freedom Federation for her own benefit. It was rumored that the Lianshen, the Mirror God, and the Fool God had a conflict. Because of the conflict between the three of them, the Class 6 Swamp Dimensional Rift in the Freedom Federation had almost closed. The Moon Empress had never believed that the rumor was true. But now, it seemed that the rumor was correct. Otherwise, the Lianshen had no reason to do such a thing that went against the interests of the Freedom Federation. To put it bluntly, the Lianshen did not have much sense of belonging to the Freedom Federation. On the contrary, the Lianshen was more attractive to the Lianshen. If she brought the Lianshen to see Lin Yuan, whatever the Lianshen said or did would be under the Moon Empress' eyes. When the time came, she could guess the Lianshen's purpose through her behavior. The Moon Empress had already agreed with the Lianshen. However, the Moon Empress did not agree immediately. At the same time, she gave a look to the old man beside her. The Moon Empress realized that ever since she met the Lianshen, in order to win over Lin Yuan, the Lianshen had been constantly relaxing the conditions. The Moon Empress wanted to use this opportunity to find out where the Lianshen's bottom line was. The Lianshen's bottom line was considered strategic intelligence for the Radiance Federation. Through the Lianshen's bottom line, she could detect how much belonging the Lianshen had to the Freedom Federation. In a situation where the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation were bound to fight, the Lianshen could not help the Radiance Federation. Even if the Lianshen did not help the Radiance Federation openly, as long as she could continue to provide the Freedom Federation with information, it was definitely a good thing that was hard to come by. It could be of great help to the Radiance Federation's strategic layout. 7017K. Chapter 1799. In the game between the two federations, information was sometimes more important than resources and strength. Any powerhouse whose strength had risen to the martial emperor level or above would be able to feel this. Not to mention the majesty who was in the clouds. In fact, the battle between king-class experts was not just limited to rank, let alone emperor-class experts. In a situation where Fays restrained each other, it wasn't impossible for a pinnacle king-class expert to kill an emperor-class expert through trickery. The stronger the spirit chi professional, the more powerful the Fey they could control. The restraint between the Fays was also clearer. Goddess Lien must have detailed information about the Freedom Federation's experts. With this detailed information, she would be able to make the most effective counterattack. On the other hand, the information provided by Goddess Lien was not as simple as the experts' information. The majesty of the Freedom Federation had a high degree of freedom. They could represent themselves at will and cooperate with other federations and other forces. But when it came to the Freedom Federation as a whole, big or small, it would be decided by the majesty in the Freedom Temple. The matters discussed in the Freedom Temple were the Freedom Federation's secrets that would never be known by outsiders. If the Radiance Federation could get hold of it in advance, they would have the upper hand in the game with the Freedom Federation. Seeing that the Moon Empress did not respond to her second proposal, Goddess Lien knew that the Moon Empress was manipulating her. Otherwise, after summoning the Rabbit Emperor, the Moon Empress should have made a move on her. Until now, the Moon Empress and the Radiance Federation's elders had not made a move, which meant that they had tacitly agreed to the deal. This made Goddess Lien calm down. If it was in the past, the Moon Empress would be manipulating her. Goddess Lien would definitely not be willing. But now, she wanted to use the Moon Empress manipulation to express her attitude towards the Radiance Federation. Goddess Lien knew very well that she had betrayed the Freedom Federation's interests in order to find an opportunity to improve. It could even be said that it was against the Freedom Federation. Once this matter was spread out, there would be no place for her in the Freedom Federation. However, Goddess Lien did not regret her actions at all. If it was not for the Mirror God and the Foolish God, she was afraid that she would be a threat to them. He was the first to destroy his own hope, and then he suppressed him again and again. Why did she have to do this? Goddess Lien was an extremely selfish and cold-blooded person. She might not remember the good things that others did to her. However, if others did not treat her well, the goddess of pity would remember it in her heart. Thus, after making this decision, Goddess Lien no longer tied herself to the interests of the Freedom Federation. On the contrary, she was leaning toward the Radiance Federation. She hoped that the Radiance Federation would give her a guarantee. At the same time, in the process of providing information, he could not let his efforts go to waste. Give me a certain amount of material support. Now, the Goddess of Mercy had a troubled expression on her face. A few moments later, the Compassion Goddess felt that she was almost done. If he continued, it would be too fake. Therefore, Lien Shun threw out her third condition. In the future, in the conflict between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation, I can act as a third party to help the Radiance Federation and form an alliance with them. The Moon Empress was certain after hearing the pitiful god's words. Goddess Lien no longer had any bottom line towards the Freedom Federation. The current Goddess Lien had already begun to act as a third party, relying on the Freedom Federation to obtain benefits for herself. To Goddess Lien, forming an alliance with Hui Yao as a third party was a good thing for Hui Yao. Fortunately, the Compassionate Goddess was not talking about joining Radiance. If the Compassionate Goddess joined the Radiance Federation, neither the Moon Empress nor the old man would agree. The Radiance Federation was able to develop until now and catch up to become one of the three major federations. It relied on the unity of the eminences. Back when the old man was in a desperate situation, he stepped on the path to heaven and awakened his fate. This made the Freedom Federation start to fear Hui Yao in a real sense. It also made the Azure Federation recognize the Radiance Federation as one of the three major federations. After the old man determined that he had no hope of breaking through in his lifetime, for the sake of Hui Yao's foundation, he used his vitality and the spark ignited in his fate to refine the 7 major federations. This allowed the 7 major federations to have a qualitative improvement. Now, the Moon Empress generation was able to rely on the old man's protection to hold up the Great Pillar. Therefore, all the eminences in the Radiance Federation were in awe of this old man. Unity had become a kind of soul of Hui Yao, and it was carried out in Hui Yao's spirit. The Compassionate Goddess could use the Freedom Federation as a bargaining chip for her own goals. After joining the Radiance Federation, she would never be at peace. This was determined by the Compassionate Goddess's quality, character, and worldview. However, as long as the Compassionate Goddess did not join the Radiance Federation, there would be no problem in forming an alliance with them. At that moment, the Moon Empress finally spoke. Since we have become allies, why don't the Compassionate Goddess and the two of us have a meeting in the Radiance Sacred Hall? Sincerity is never expressed with words. During the meeting, I hope the Compassionate Goddess can show us your sincerity to the Radiance Federation. Upon hearing this, the Compassionate Goddess sat on the golden silk suet jade chair at the side. Of course, just in time for us to go see Lin Yuan after the meeting. I can also set off to return to the Freedom Federation. A meeting between the three of them was quietly carried out in the Radiance Sacred Hall. Within the next 2 years, this meeting would affect the entire main world structure. After Lin Yuan let the Remembrance Soul Whale condense the Jade Gray's soul, everyone had a meal together. Zi Qing, Xue Shuo, Lan Lian, Bai Feng, and the others wanted to express their gratitude to him again. Lin Yuan rejected it right away. The blessing that Lan Lian had given Lin Yuan could be said to be a great help to him. At that time, it was precisely because of Lan Lian's blessing that the power of faith in Lin Yuan's shrine could be completely combined with his mermaid state. In his body, a special and pure mermaid bloodline was born. As a human, Lin Yuan was in the state of fusion with a fae. Because of the favored spirit's blessing, a new kind of bloodline was born. Although this bloodline had arisen because of Blue, it was now in Lin Yuan's body and had nothing to do with Blue. This could be said to be a kind of fortuitous encounter for Lin Yuan. However, Lin Yuan was not sure if this fortuitous encounter was good or bad for him. Lin Yuan declined the material gratitude that Ziqing and the others expressed to him. Instead, he threw out a sentence. Anti-Ziqing, you are the Grand Hall Master of the Heaven-Blessed Dojo, and the Tower Cannon is the enemy of the Heaven-Blessed Dojo. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation are enemies. The Tower Cannon and the Freedom Federation have a cooperative relationship. I hope that the Heaven-Blessed Dojo and the Radiance Federation can also reach a close cooperative relationship. 7017K. Chapter 1800. When Lin Yuan said this, he thought about it very seriously. Although this method was a little unkind, it seemed to have the intention of pulling the Blessed Mansion into their group. However, Hui Yao really needed an ally like the Heaven-Blessed Dojo. Lin Yuan had thought that Ziqing would first think about it before giving him an answer. Unexpectedly, Ziqing had agreed to it without hesitation. Little Yuan, I will personally head to the Radiance Imperial Court tomorrow morning to visit the Radiance Imperial Court. At the same time, I will officially invite Hui Yao to become an ally. Alright. When I came here, I saw the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids near the Ageless Continent. The Imperial Mermaids' target is the Radiance Continent. There is a Radiance Ocean Treaty between the Radiance and the Sea Clan. Is there a conflict between the Imperial Mermaid Clan and the Radiance Federation? Ziqing's words caused Lin Yuan to rejoice. It would be great if Heaven-Blessed Dojo could officially become the Radiance Federation's ally. However, after hearing about the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids, his expression immediately turned cold. Back then, the mother of Bloodbath had almost been killed by the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids. The image of the mother of Bloodbath covered in spikes was still vivid in his mind. In the end, the shark Mang used the blood energy in its body and the 6-star sacred source life form, Scarlet Tentacle Algae, to help the mother of Bloodbath. This allowed the mother of Bloodbath to rely on this huge amount of bloodline energy to break through to Myth 3 and awaken the Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline in its body. Otherwise, where would he collect such a huge amount of blood energy for the mother of Bloodbath? The Blood Brew Grapevine was definitely going to become the mother of Bloodbath's nutrients. There was no chance of survival. Now, the Blood Brew Grapevine had survived, and under the mother of Bloodbath's nurturing, its bloodline had improved. However, the Shark Ray's help to the mother of Bloodbath was purely because Lin Yuan had summoned Bai Yen. In terms of strength, he had crushed Shark Mang. Otherwise, Shark Mang would not have sacrificed his life and provided all his blood energy to the mother of Bloodbath. Help the mother of Bloodbath increase its strength. Therefore, he would never let go of the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids. Ziqing had just arrived and did not know the situation. Now that Ziqing mentioned the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids, before Lin Yuan could speak, Blue Lotus spoke up angrily. Back then, the people of the Imperial Mermaid clan almost killed Sister Yu Gui's child. If it weren't for Lin Yuan, Big Sister Jade Gui's child would have died in the ocean. The Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids have a blood feud with our Heaven-Blessed Mansion. Sister Ziqing, our Heaven-Blessed Dojo has always been hiding from the world so that we won't be disturbed by the troubles of the world. But first, Pagoda Dian made a move against Big Sister Jade Gui, and now the Imperial Mermaids and Merman clan made a move against Xueqing. Our Heaven's Blessed Dojo has been hiding from the world again and again, so we can only be bullied by the outside world. Now that you've decided to form an alliance with the Radiance sect, the Blessed Dojo will be entering the world. Why don't we just destroy the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan? As one of the 8 clans of the Ocean Empire, the Imperial Mermaid clan is in cahoots with the Freedom Federation. The entire clan migrated to the sea near the Freedom Federation, breaking the division of power between the sea folk. The 8 clans of the Sea Monarch were born to maintain the order of the sea. The Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan doesn't deserve to sit on this seat. Ziqing knew very well that Lan Lian never had a talkative personality. The reason why she was saying so much in front of her was because the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids had almost killed Xueqing, and Lan Lian wanted revenge. No matter how calm Ziqing was, after hearing Lan Lian's words, a wave of anger and lingering fear involuntarily surged from her heart. Fortunately, Yu Gui, Xue Shura, and Xueqing's family of 3 had reunited after a long time, and had already gone out to have a heart-to-heart talk. If Yu Gui knew that Xueqing had almost died and fallen into a dangerous situation, he would definitely be sad and blame himself. Ziqing said coldly. This time, other than delivering the handkerchief containing Yu Gui's remnant soul, I had originally planned to stain my hands with the blood of the pagoda canon. Since I don't know why the 2 people in the 8 pages of the pagoda canon did not appear in Huiyao, then let's start with the imperial mermaids and mermaids. Among the sea folk, there are many who can fill the positions of the 8 clans of the Ocean Empire. The destruction of the imperial mermaids and mermaids will not affect the sea folk at all. I believe that the people from the vast ocean labyrinth will not have any objections. After all, the 8 great clans of the Sea Empire are merely puppets that they have raised up to rule the Sea Tribe. Lanlian, Baifeng, you 2 go inform the others to surround and annihilate the imperial mermaids and mermaids clan. Let's do it before they arrive at Huiyao. When Ziqing heard the news from Lanlian, he decided to exterminate the imperial mermaids and mermaids. The reason why he suggested taking action before the imperial mermaids and mermaids reached the Huiyao clan was because Ziqing wanted to return Huiyao a favor. There was a natural barrier between humans and the sea race. One side was a human, while the other was a fae. The Radiance Federation and the oceanic species signed the Radiance Sea Treaty. To both sides, it was binding. If Huiyao and the Imperial Mermaid Clan were to act, even if the Imperial Mermaid Clan was in the wrong in this matter, it was very likely that the entire Sea Clan would be displeased. After all, although the sea race had internal conflicts, the sea race was still a whole entity. The Ocean Labyrinth would never allow a human to kill a group of relatively stronger puppets under its command. If this matter were to blow up, Huiyao would not benefit at all. The surface area of the sea was twice that of the land. Back then, there was a federation with a Class 5 creation master, the Ice Federation. Due to the wanton hunting of the sea race, the Ocean Labyrinth was displeased. Finally, the ice continent where the Ice Federation was located was surrounded by surging waves. Huge waves that were 7,000 to 8,000 meters tall carried seawater and poured into the Ice Federation. It directly swept the entire ice continent where the Ice Federation was located with a flood and tsunami. In the end, the Ocean Labyrinth even sent an expert to kill the Ice Federation's Class 5 creation master. It was because of this matter that the Ocean Labyrinth attracted the dissatisfaction of all the Federation with Class 5 creation masters. This caused the Ocean Labyrinth to be forced to make a promise. As long as humans did not wantonly hunt the sea race and only followed the natural law of the jungle. In the sea, they would maintain basic fishing. The Ocean Labyrinth would no longer appear. This matter had passed for many years. The Ocean Labyrinth should have been looking for an opportunity to appear. It was not good for the Radiance Federation to make a move on the Imperial Mermaid Clan, but if the Heaven-Blessed Dojo made a move on the Imperial Mermaid Clan, there was no need to worry. Firstly, the Heaven-Blessed Dojo was also a fae. Secondly, the Heaven-Blessed Dojo had 3 dojo lords married into the Ocean Labyrinth. If the Ocean Labyrinth dared to find trouble with the Heaven-Blessed Dojo, all of them would probably have to kneel at the bottom of the sea. After all, in the Heaven-Blessed Dojo, apart from the Jade Gui, there didn't seem to be any female Heaven-Blessed Dojo that was truly gentle. 7017K. Chapter 1801. Of course, this didn't mean that the Ocean Labyrinth's strength was inferior to the Heaven-Blessed Mansion. On the contrary, if one were to really compare, the true ruling power of the sea region, the Ocean Labyrinth, actually had more experts than the Heaven-Blessed Dojo. After all, the area of the sea region was there for all to see. The 3 hall lords of the Blessed Dojo who had married into the vast Ocean Labyrinth were able to have such status. On one hand, it was because the Blessed Dojo was indeed strong enough and was a power that matched the vast Ocean Labyrinth. The other reason was that the vast ocean maze's sovereign emperors were all infatuated and henpecked. He treated his wife so well that no one could say anything about it. Thus, it was most appropriate for the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids to be dealt with by the Heaven-Blessed Mansion. after exterminating the imperial mermaids and mermaids at the heaven-blessed mansion. Not only did the vast ocean labyrinth not say anything, it even expressed its apologies to the blessed mansion. If Xueqing's 3 aunts knew that Xueqing had almost died in the hands of the imperial mermaids and mermaids, even in the ocean labyrinth, he would have to deal with the imperial mermaids and mermaids who were puppets by himself. Otherwise, how could the 3 sovereign emperors in the vast ocean labyrinth bear it if Xueqing's 3 aunts returned to their parents' home? However, it was clear that Ziqing did not intend to take things to such an extent. Lan Lian's eyes lit up when she heard Ziqing's words. He said hurriedly, "Sister Ziqing, Bai Feng doesn't understand anything. Leave this matter to me." After that, Lan Lian took out her phone excitedly. Bai Feng could not help but roll her eyes at Lan Lian's words. "Wretched girl. Even now, you still don't forget to insult me." This was the first time Lin Yuan had heard of the vast ocean maze. He still did not know much about the sea species faction. Ziqing did not see Lin Yuan in his mermaid state. If Ziqing had seen it, she would have thought to herself. He did not need to understand what kind of faction the vast ocean maze was. When the ocean maze saw him in his mermaid state, it would definitely take the initiative to contact him. After everything was settled, Lin Yuan returned to his room. Before entering the spirit lock spatial zone, he planned to check on the willpower rune that he had just comprehended that was related to the soul. After returning to his room, Lin Yuan circulated his spiritual energy and summoned the willpower rune that was dancing in his soul. The milky white translucent willpower rune was constantly collapsing and reforming. Lin Yuan sensed a willpower called soul gathering from it. The appearance of this willpower rune surprised Lin Yuan. This was because he had comprehended 2 willpower runes after he had formed a contract with the thought soul whale and used it to absorb souls. These 2 willpower runes were very similar, but their essence was completely different. It was the willpower rune that he had comprehended through absorbing the remnant soul through the thought soul whale. It referred to the absorption of the soul, not the reorganization of the soul. Back then, the psychic whale had used that willpower rune to successfully evolve into a fantasy breed. He had obtained the exclusive skill, soul remembrance. This allowed the soul whale to collect and fuse dead souls. When the dead soul reached a certain degree of completeness, it would become a soul remembrance imprint. It attached itself to a life form of the same species and increased its ability to comprehend. It made it easier for life forms of the same species to comprehend the same laws. Lin Yuan's new soul-related willpower rune was more suitable for the thought soul whale. However, Lin Yuan did not regret letting the thought soul whale fuse with a willpower rune related to the soul. Lin Yuan really liked the psychic soul whale's exclusive skill after becoming a fantasy breed, Endao of Soul Remembrance. This exclusive skill, Endao of Soul Remembrance, could not only assist Lin Yuan himself. It could also help Lin Yuan manage his faction. In the team battle, Lin Yuan had displayed such powerful strength as a B-rank spirit chi professional. It could not be separated from Lin Yuan's extreme nurturing of phase. This was the first time Lin Yuan had summoned Genius to battle. Back then, Genius had used its full strength to suppress Lu O, who had fused with Great Devil. The subsequent elemental attacks and physical attacks were all powerful. This was all thanks to Genius Cat's cluster. The strength of Cat's cluster came from those feline phase in the swamp world and the spirit cat paradise. If Lin Yuan wanted to increase Genius strength, he had to nurture these feline phase. Lin Yuan had the 100 Questions Beast Legion. He also had the Class 5 Creation Master D Wanmi. He didn't lack Creation Master resources anymore. However, Creation Master resources could upgrade these feline phase to Diamond X/Legend. However, they could not help these feline phase comprehend the willpower rune and comprehend the laws. This made it so that after reaching Diamond X/Legend, if these feline phase wanted to upgrade again, they would have to spend a lot of effort. It would become extremely difficult. But now, with the Remembrance Soul Whale's exclusive skill, Soul Remembrance, these feline phase in the Spirit Cat Paradise wanted to comprehend the willpower rune and comprehend the laws. It would be much easier. Lin Yuan and Genius were helping each other out. Genius might be powerful, but if Lin Yuan was not Genius Contractor and was someone else, that person would definitely not be able to nurture genius to such an extent. In order to increase genius strength, he had to use the best method to nurture a large number of feline fays. Right now, there were 3,472 feline fays in the spirit cat paradise. However, these feline fays were far from the limit that genius could contract. Given genius' current spiritual energy, it would be able to contract at least 7,000 feline fays through its Lord of Myriad Cats ability. Right now, it had contracted over 3,000 feline fays because before the Radiance 100 sequence selection, Lin Yuan was not able to obtain so many high-quality feline fays in one go. Each of the feline fays had been enhanced to Diamond X/Legend using the best method. In fact, it did not improve genius much. It could be said that using the cat's cluster to enhance genius strength was an extremely low price-performance ratio. Even Class 5 creation masters might not be willing to spend so many resources to nurture fays. Only Lin Yuan had the Spirit Lock spatial zone and a special physique. Only then could he nurture genius. Not only genius, but Red Thorn's Mouth of Relinquish was also a bottomless pit that needed to constantly devour resources. Chimey needed a large number of strange flames to temper the sun in its body. Even the Source Sand, which was easier to nurture, needed to grind about 20 Earth-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls every day. It used the pure Earth-type elemental energy in the Earth-type elemental pearls to nurture the guard sand. Lin Yuan himself was a bottomless pit for resources. It was the same for Sky City. The Remembrance Soul Whale's exclusive skill, Soul Remembrance, saved Lin Yuan a lot of trouble. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this exclusive skill was even more precious than some sacred source life forms. Right now, Lin Yuan did not have a suitable fey to use for this Soul Gather willpower rune. Lin Yuan did not have any plans to nurture a fey for this willpower rune. 7017K. Chapter 1802. Lin Yuan planned to store this willpower rune first, as he would have a use for it in the future. After checking his newly obtained willpower rune, he entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone. The first thing Lin Yuan did after entering the Spirit Lock spatial zone was to take the emerald green dimensional gem. Lin Yuan looked at the Morbius trench in his mind. Morbius, you previously said that this dimensional gem can complete you. I wonder how I should use this dimensional gem? Hearing this, Morbius could not suppress the anticipation in its voice. This stone shouldn't be called a dimensional gem. I can't remember what it's called. It's just that this gem can make me feel that this is a part of what I need. Partner, place this gem in the groove of my body. My main body will merge with it, and I will fall into a deep slumber. When I wake up, I should be able to find out what this gem is. Apart from being able to unlock Spirit Lock's Fey ability, there might be other surprises. When Lin Yuan heard that Morbius was going to sleep again, his heart tightened. He was not afraid that he would encounter some problems after Morbius fell asleep. He liked to communicate with Morbius in his mind. Morbius was Lin Yuan's companion Fey, and they were interdependent. He could tell Morbius many things that he could not say to Chu Ci without reservation. Right now, if Morbius was asleep, judging from the length of Morbius's slumber, it was impossible for Morbius to survive. He felt that it would probably take a long time before he could communicate with Morbius again. However, it was a good thing for Morbius to mend itself. Lin Yuan was also very happy. Lin Yuan could feel the anticipation in Morbius' heart. Any life form, not just Fays, would look forward to their own improvement. It was the same for Morbius. Since Lin Yuan could perceive Morbius' thoughts, Morbius could also clearly perceive Lin Yuan's thoughts. Upon sensing Lin Yuan's intentions, Morbius' voice softened for no reason. Buddy, I only need to sleep for 8 hours. I will be able to complete the fusion with this emerald gem. It won't take too long. Tonight, I will be able to meet you in a completely new manner. In these 8 hours, think carefully about which phase ability to be unlocked. After hearing Morbius' words, he knew that Morbius would only need to sleep for 8 hours before waking up. A bright smile immediately appeared on Lin Yuan's face. As for which Spirit Lock Fey to unseal, Lin Yuan had already thought of it beforehand. Lin Yuan planned to unseal the jasmine lily first. There were two reasons why Lin Yuan had chosen to unseal the jasmine lily. On one hand, it was because Little Black and Zixiao were both assistants. The Soul Remembrance Whale was a functional type Fey. Compared to support, healing was more important. This team battle had allowed him to basically understand who his teammates would be after he became a Radiance Envoy. It could be said that none of Lin Yuan's batch of youths were pure healing-type spirit chi professionals. In the process of forming a team, Lin Yuan had to shoulder the responsibility of healing the team. Little Hei's spirit recovery ability collided with Gao Feng's ability. Purple Firmament's ability collided with Gu Lang's ability. Lin Yuan had never fought against Gu Lang and had never had the chance to fight alongside him. However, during the Return from Faraway Manners meeting before the Radiance 100 sequence selection, everyone understood each other's phase. Gu Lang's control ability was paired with the Sacred Source life form. It could be said that he could control the entire battlefield in multiple dimensions. As a functional type Fey, the Soul Remembrance Whale was not within Lin Yuan's consideration. Thus, the Jasmine Lily was Lin Yuan's best choice. On the other hand, the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Severed Connection, was combined with the Mother of Bloodbath's Sacred Source life form, the Myriad Herb Spring. Together with the Soul Remembrance Whale's ability, it could bring living beings back from the dead and reconstruct their bodies. Lin Yuan wanted to see if the Jasmine Lily's unsealing ability could improve the Myriad Herb Spring's abilities to a greater extent. Lin Yuan said to Morbius with determination, "I choose the Jasmine Lily." Hearing this, Morbius said with relief, "Partner, this is the wisest choice." Morbius and Lin Yuan conversed for a while before Lin Yuan placed the emerald gem into the groove of the Morbius bracelet. Morbius' copper-colored body suddenly blossomed with resplendent copper-colored light. The emerald gem also lit up with a faint green glow. The copper glow enveloped the green glow. Lin Yuan realized that after the copper glow completely enveloped the green glow, the emerald gem invaded the Morbius bracelet. It formed a hole with the Morbius bracelet. Lin Yuan waited for Morbius to wake up 8 hours later. It was not just because Lin Yuan was looking forward to the unsealing of the Jasmine Lily. At the same time, Lin Yuan was also looking forward to Morbius' new enhancements after fusing with the gem. At the same time, Lin Yuan was also looking forward to the new enhancements that Morbius would obtain after fusing with the gem. It could be said that every enhancement of Morbius was of great help to Lin Yuan. Just like the elemental well that had appeared in the Spirit Lock spatial zone not long ago. At the bottom of the well, there was already a thin layer of well water. It was like the accumulated water on the roadside after a rain. There was still too little well water in the elemental well. If Lin Yuan wanted to use it in large quantities, he would need to wait for a period of time. Lin Yuan had given Na to save Luo. He kept the 3 Sacred Source life forms that were used as compensation. These 3 uncontracted Sacred Source life forms were like a blind box to Lin Yuan. Since Lin Yuan knew how Sacred Source life forms were formed, he preferred to obtain Sacred Source life forms from dimensional worlds that were clear about their origins. Lin Yuan could vaguely guess the abilities of these Sacred Source life forms that he could confirm their origins. Therefore, Lin Yuan planned to use these 3 Sacred Source life forms as Sky City's reserve resources as a reward for his subordinates who had contributed to Sky City. The phaseless beast cub's roars kept ringing in Lin Yuan's soul. Lin Yuan did not have any good ideas for dealing with this suzerain/mythi phaseless beast. The phaseless beast burrowed into his soul, and Morbius used its power of origin to seal his soul. It cut off the connection between Luo and the phaseless beast. However, as long as Lin Yuan released the phaseless beast would be able to sense it. No matter how far away they were, Luo would be able to sense the phaseless beast. To put it bluntly, Lin Yuan could only choose to keep the phaseless beast in his soul. Either he killed this phaseless beast that brought disaster to the world. However, he was unable to completely control this phaseless beast that brought calamity to the world. One had to know that Lin Yuan coveted this phaseless beast that brought calamity to the world. Chapter 1803. The phaseless beast that Lin Yuan had snatched from Lu O was the same as Genius Chimey. It used its own bloodline to create a species Fei. It was a unique existence in the world. This phaseless beast cub was produced by the phaseless beast mother body. Lin Yuan had never seen the mother before, so he did not know what abilities it had. However, the mother's ability, Nation Luck Steal, and its exclusive skill, Disaster Luck. They were all abilities that Lin Yuan had never seen in other life forms. It could extract the luck of the land and steal it for its own use to increase the effects of its abilities. This allowed the phaseless beast to have the ability to fight across a major realm. Nation Luck Steal required lifespan, which was a shortcoming of the phaseless beast. If there was a way to increase the lifespan of the phaseless beast, it could be offset by its exclusive skill, Count Lifespan. The phaseless beast could definitely be called a great killing weapon. As for the exclusive skill, Phaseless Face, it allowed the phaseless beast to be abnormally flexible in combat. During a team battle, the phaseless beast could make up for the team's shortcomings according to the team's configuration. During the battle, Lu O had made this phaseless beast, which brought calamity to the world, change into his appearance. Before he could launch an attack, he stared at Lin Yuan and was in a stalemate with him. In the end, the phaseless beast was imprisoned in Lin Yuan's soul. There was no effect at all. If Lu O had not made the phaseless beast target him, he would not have been able to control it. Instead, he would have used the incantations, curse words, and curse heart to control it. It would have undoubtedly put a lot of pressure on the Radiance's side. The Suzerain/Myth-I phaseless beast's grade was higher than all of Lin Yuan, Zhong Zai, and Gao Feng's phase. Therefore, there was no need to worry about control. Lu Yifun's phase and sacred source life forms mostly had physical and elemental defenses. They were lacking in defense against the spirit, soul, and heart. This made it very difficult to restrain and target the phaseless beast when it was controlled. In addition, the Radiance's strategy was to kill Yanling first and remove the link between the three sacred source life forms. If Luo had not instructed the phaseless beast to attack Lin Yuan but had allowed it to replicate her into Yanling after Yanling was killed, the phaseless beast would not have been able to kill Lin Yuan. It would be able to support the three sacred source life forms working together again. It would have been fine if Lin Yuan had not obtained this phaseless beast. Now that he had obtained the phaseless beast, he could only look on helplessly. It was truly infuriating. Upon hearing the phaseless beast's incessant hooting in his soul, Lin Yuan prepared to tease this phaseless beast. However, just as Lin Yuan was preparing to tease this phaseless beast that was wreaking havoc, the phone suddenly rang. Lin Yuan picked up his cell phone and realized that the call was from the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan hurriedly picked it up. Lin Yuan heard the Moon Empress say in a rather serious tone, "Little Yuan, come to the Radiant Moon Palace at 9 p.m. With that, the Moon Empress hung up the phone. He immediately knew that his master, the Moon Empress, had something to look for him, and it should be a rather important matter. Otherwise, according to the agreement between him and the Moon Empress, he should be going to the Radiant Moon Palace tomorrow. For a moment, Lin Yuan could not figure out why the Moon Empress would suddenly look for him. There was still some time before 9 p.m., so Lin Yuan did not think too much about it. He continued to study the phaseless beast that was wreaking havoc. This phaseless beast was not a cat species Fei. Otherwise, when Lin Yuan was smart enough to suppress this phaseless beast cub, he would be able to use the Lord of Cat's ability to control this phaseless beast cub. Through the skill, Lord of 10,000 Cats, he could control this phaseless beast cub. After studying for 2 hours, Lin Yuan could not come up with any good ideas. After studying for 2 hours, Lin Yuan, who could not come up with any good ideas, secretly probed. If it really did not work, he could only kill this phaseless beast cub. He would then hand over this phaseless beast cub to the 100 Questions Beast Legion. He wanted the 100 Questions Beast Legion to study the situation of this phaseless beast that brought disaster to the world. Perhaps they would be able to find the method to nurture this phaseless beast. Of course, Lin Yuan knew that it was too difficult to pry out the secret of this phaseless beast. Just like when the flower branch rat and the longevity rat were placed together, No one would think that the longevity rat was nurtured from the flower branch rat. Genius had transformed from a 100 questions beast to a heaven-knowing destiny beast. Genius strength was at Diamond X/Fantasy V. The 100 questions beasts in the 100 questions beast legion were also at Diamond X. However, none of the 100 questions beasts had transformed into heaven-knowing destiny beasts during the process of increasing their strength. Not to mention heaven-knowing destiny beasts, not even one had transformed into the interconnected life beast. Lin Yuan could not help but guess that only the first one had taken a special path. Only a fae with its own species could be so extraordinary. Currently, Morbius was in a deep slumber. Lin Yuan planned to wait for Morbius to wake up 8 hours later and have a good talk with it. He wanted to see if Morbius had any good ideas. There was still a while before the appointment with the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan started to organize the spoils of war that he had obtained from the battle with the Freedom Federation's envoys. After organizing everything, Lin Yuan planned to head to the Radiant Moon Palace to see why his master, the Moon Empress, was looking for him. Originally, Lin Yuan should have thrown these sacred source life forms to Wanmi, especially Chen Yu's 8-star sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse. During the battle with Han Qi, Lin Yuan had witnessed the power of offensive artifacts. Therefore, Lin Yuan especially wanted to create an artifact for himself. The artifact created by the Hidden Sea Muse was only suitable for Lin Yuan in his mermaid state. Regardless of whether Lin Yuan was in his normal state or in his mermaid state, he was still Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan felt that he would probably have to equip 2 sets of artifacts in the future. It was suitable for him to use in different states. It seemed that Wanmi would be used by Lin Yuan to create artifacts from now on. There were still 10 minutes before 9 o'clock. Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's ability node to teleport and appeared in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace. However, the moment Lin Yuan appeared in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, his eyes immediately widened. This was because Lin Yuan realized that there was a person beside the exquisite jade table in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace. Apart from his master, the Moon Empress, there was also a person that Lin Yuan had a deep impression of. This person was the Pity God. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yuan's first impression of the Pity God should be the Freedom Federation's majesty. However, the moment Lin Yuan transformed into a mermaid, he could clearly sense the mermaid bloodline in the Pity God's body. 7017K. Chapter 1804. The mermaid bloodline in Goddess Lian's body was much stronger than Chen Yu's mermaid bloodline after fusing with an 8-star sacred source life form. But compared to Lin Yuan's mermaid bloodline, there was still a huge gap. The mermaid bloodline was extremely exclusive. Lin Yuan, who was in his mermaid state, looked down on Chen Yu's mermaid bloodline. Similarly, he looked down on Goddess Lian's mermaid bloodline. Especially after the Blue Lotus's blessing caused the mermaid bloodline in his body to transform. This rejection of Goddess Lian's mermaid bloodline, or rather, contempt, became stronger and stronger. Even if Lin Yuan did not enter his mermaid state. Due to the influence of the bloodline in his body, Lin Yuan actually subconsciously looked down on the Pity God, who could crush him with a single finger. Goddess Lian would appear in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, and his master would be there as well. This meant that Goddess Lian was a guest. Logically speaking, Lin Yuan should have greeted Goddess Lian after greeting the Moon Empress. However, the pride of the merfolk bloodline in his body made him subconsciously not do so. It was just like how a flood dragon looked down on a green insect. As soon as Lin Yuan arrived, the little white rabbit in the Moon Empress' arms bounced into Lin Yuan's arms. Lin Yuan knew that the little white rabbit that his master usually carried was called Zishi. Lin Yuan tried to touch Zishi. But previously, Zishi would immediately jump away every time Lin Yuan stretched out his hand, as if she despised him. But this time, why had Zishi taken the initiative to jump into his arms? Lin Yuan thought for a while and immediately understood. Zishi, who was in his arms, still looked reluctant as she squirmed around in his arms. She hugged Radish tightly, as if afraid that Lin Yuan would snatch Radish away. At the same time, Lin Yuan's ears perked up, obviously entering a state of alertness. Presumably, because Goddess Lin was present, his master had asked Zixi to protect him. This meant that the Moon Empress did not trust Goddess Lin. Lin Yuan did not waste his brain to think about what was going on. His master had invited him to the Radiant Moon Palace, and it must have something to do with Goddess Lin. Lin Yuan only needed to wait for the Moon Empress to mention it. The moment Lin Yuan appeared, the Goddess of Mercy appeared. The close contact with Lin Yuan immediately made the merfolk bloodline in Lian Shen's body restless. Lian Shen forcefully circulated the spiritual energy in her body to suppress the restlessness of her mermaid bloodline. Only then could he barely maintain his calm on the surface. He did not want to lose his composure in front of the Moon Empress. If he lost his composure in front of the Moon Empress, the merfolk bloodline aura in his body would go out of control. The Moon Empress would immediately guess the reason why she wanted to get in touch with Lin Yuan. This was contrary to Goddess Lian's plan. Goddess Compassion would be willing to cooperate with Radiance and betray the Freedom Federation. It was all for a chance to improve further. Once the Moon Empress knew of his objective, it would be the same as the Moon Empress grabbing onto his weakness. This was a situation that the Goddess of Mercy would never allow to happen. After Lin Yuan walked to the Moon Empress side, the Moon Empress released her aura and enveloped Lin Yuan. He turned to Lian Shen and said, "My disciple is already standing in front of you. If there's anything you want to say to my disciple, say it quickly." Through the way Lin Yuan looked at the Moon Empress, Lian Shen knew that Lin Yuan trusted the Moon Empress wholeheartedly. In front of the Moon Empress, he was in a defenseless state. The Goddess of Mercy had never been defenseless against anyone. In the Goddess of Mercy's view, being defenseless was the deepest feeling. Therefore, the Goddess of Mercy's heart couldn't help but surge with jealousy toward the Moon Empress. The Goddess of Mercy also hoped that Lin Yuan would also enter such a state towards her. In this way, would it still be far for her to obtain Lin Yuan's love? The mermaid bloodline in Lin Yuan's body had just transformed into the mermaid imperial bloodline. It still needed some time to stabilize. Therefore, the Goddess of Mercy's visit this time was mainly to let Lin Yuan know about her, and to have a deep impression of herself. Then, she could also take advantage of this opportunity to express her goodwill to Lin Yuan. The Goddess of Mercy's eyes looked at Lin Yuan. She wanted to express her goodwill to Lin Yuan. However, when she saw Lin Yuan's exquisite facial features and the bloodline aura hidden in his body, the Goddess of Mercy's golden red fishtail trembled unconsciously. This made the Goddess of Mercy, who had been enjoying the benefits of the mermaid bloodline and causing the extinction of the mermaid race, curse in her heart for the first time. The disappointment of the bloodline in her body. Lin Yuan was now of the mermaid imperial family's bloodline. In the future, the mermaid imperial bloodline in Lin Yuan's body would continue to strengthen and eventually reach the peak of the imperial bloodline. If she couldn't obtain Lin Yuan's love before that, her bloodline would improve further. She was afraid that she wouldn't have the courage to sit face to face with Lin Yuan. Even if they sat face to face, even if she tried her best to suppress it, it was impossible to be like this without revealing flaws. This made the Goddess of Mercy immediately realize that Lin Yuan was both her help and her hindrance. Even with Lin Yuan's strength, it would be impossible for him to catch up with her for a long time. However, if Lin Yuan released the power of his bloodline in front of her and suppressed the mermaid bloodline in her body, then, when facing an eternal realm Fae, it was very likely that she would be at a disadvantage. Understanding this, the Goddess of Mercy looked at Lin Yuan with a strange gaze, with a bit of vigilance and scrutiny. But soon, a trace of guilt uncontrollably welled up in the depths of the Goddess of Mercy's heart. It was as if her vigilance and scrutiny of Lin Yuan was a sin in itself. At that moment, for the first time, the Goddess of Mercy had the urge to flee. Taking a deep breath, the Goddess of Mercy forced herself to calm down and said, "I am a Pinnacle Class 5 Creation Master. Qian Yu's Sacred Source life form is very compatible with you, so I can still stay in the Radiance Union for a while. During this time, why don't I help you refine the body of the hidden sea muse into a treasure?" The Goddess of Mercy was a person who was afraid of trouble. When the Freedom Federation's Majesty asked the Goddess of Mercy to help refine a treasure, she would rarely agree, even if the price was high. The Goddess of Mercy said all this to gain Lin Yuan's favor. But the Goddess of Mercy did not notice. Because of the bloodline, the Goddess of Mercy's words to Lin Yuan were unusually gentle. This gentle feeling was like the whispering of a secret admirer to an admirer. Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a surprised expression. He did not understand why the Goddess of Mercy would say such a thing to him. Why would the Goddess of Mercy refine a treasure for him out of nowhere? The Goddess of Mercy was waiting for Lin Yuan's response, but before she could, she heard the Moon Empress snort. This Empress is a Class 6 creation master. This Empress disciple's sacred source life form will definitely be personally forged by this Empress. 7017K, you're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.